Welcome everybody, and it's a fairly busy schedule, so we'll get started. And I've got the minutes from the September 18th. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Turton. The minutes of the September 18th, 2018 council meeting be approved. All in favor? Great. Right. Additional items. I have a few. Has anybody else got any?
Yeah, I think so.
And just before we start, I've had kind of a nice opportunity to maybe call Cam up to the podium, and I have a little presentation for him. So it's with great pleasure, Cam, that we Municipal Law Enforcement Officers Association of Ontario, and this is a certified that Cam Forbes, having compiled and with academic and experience requirements for the association as a registered member in good standing, is hereby certified and authorized to use the designation. So you now are a municipal law enforcement officer. Does that make you feel a lot better? We have two officers here that might loan you one. There's the backup. I want to pin this on you. Could have had this all opened up.
Pin it in you.
Better than getting your mustache shaved off.
How did that go?
Mustache shaved off.
No, there's no. You're allowed.
I remember.
This is
Keep calling Cam up.
This is great. I'm glad you're finally approved.
You're legal now.
There you go.
You're of age.
No gun.
Perfect.
Thanks. Did you want to say anything? No.
Really quick.
I'll let you
Be careful what you were misconstrued. That's right. Exactly.
Well, he's even leaving now, so he doesn't have to listen to me. But it's just great to see staff when they complete these things. And a lot of people don't realize it takes time and effort to complete and get your designation. So I know Cam's meant a few words, but we really appreciate that he went to that obligation and trouble. So I'll give him a round of applause. And now, no public meetings, delegations. Moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Dirksen. The town of Minto convenes in the committee of the whole. All in favor? Great. And our first delegation, and I'm really happy to have Scott and Bruce here. And Scott always said to me, and I think Councillor Elliott, you had brought this up a while back, because there's so much of things going on out there, and we're just in a constant flux of change with some of this stuff. So Scott had always said to me at County Council, anytime you need us to come, discuss anything, present, he was always willing to do that. And when we give him a call after this council thought we should have a briefing of what's going on with related drugs. So I'll just turn it over to you, Scott. Thank you, and Bruce for coming today. And if you want to get up, and you can sit and stand, or we can put two down, we can put two seats down. How do you want to do it? It's up to you.
Come on up, Bruce.
Just grab a chair and bring it over there.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for inviting Bruce and I. I think everybody may know Bruce. You should be at that mic, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Bruce is a long-serving member with us here in Wellington, lives in the community, actually in your community here in the town of Minto, and we're proud that Bruce is one of my right hands, and Bruce brings a lot of years of service and a lot of expertise with him, so I thought it was important that Bruce come and at least help me talk at a higher level around what's happening in our communities, and in sort of in response to the resolution that you and your council passed. So, are you flicking that, or
No,
is
I think me. Just tell me.
Is that you? Okay. So yeah, we put down a little presentation together, and what I will say is this is with the fluidity of our provincial government, this has changed already a little bit because there's been some announcements made since I submitted this to the clerk. So there's no doubt that from our commissioner on down that we understand that drugs are a problem in our community, and just a little quote from our commissioner that reaffirms that there is that challenge that we all face in our communities, and one of our biggest challenges that we focus on. So, and I think the crux of the resolution from council was, what's the OPP doing in the community with respect to drugs and addiction, and I think that's really where I wanted to take the presentation. There is a cannabis piece in the end. If you want to hear a little bit about it, you can certainly. I'll do my best to talk through that with Bruce. But the crux of it is do you feel safe in your communities, and what are we doing about it? And I'm really proud to stand before mayor and council and talk about some of the things that we do. And I think you get a sense of at least that we understand what's happening in our communities. We work in collaboration with all our partners. Mayors, council, fire, public works, all of us are together a lot on a lot of issues. So this was just a quick little snapshot of one of our drug busts that a couple of fine officers worked on at New Year's Eve and resulted in a fairly big seizure. It was public press release and the like. But is there drugs in our community? Yes, there is. There's an example there. I'm not suggesting that it was from the town of Minto, but it just is a quick demonstration that we're alive to what we see in our communities. Bruce, I'll turn that one over to you in terms of.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Scott. So we are fortunate. Stats and data is a lot of like any organization. We rely on that to kind of show our history and watch our trends that go on in our communities. So as you read up there on the board, and say in the last 10 years, we've had over 249,000 occurrences in our county. And violent crime, property crime, and drug occurrences account for 11% of those 249,000. So, and the bottom part, although it may seem only 1% of our occurrences involve drugs in the county, that's still the numbers over a 10-year period. I don't know what the numbers are offhand, but it's still in all our communities for sure.
Yeah, and so when you see drugs, you know that there's going to be other things that come from drugs, right? Like property crime and driving offenses and domestic violence and things that. So what we're showing you there is the 1% is strictly how we score drug-related occurrences, but there's so many spin-off occurrences that come from that. So there's your breakdown of sort of the drugs in the county of Wellington. I don't think that's a big surprise. Hopefully not. But what the bottom one there in the italics is the new pressure that we're starting to see in our communities, and that's fentanyl. And I know Chief Harrow and ourselves and our paramedic service have talked a lot about that and exposure and our own personal protection for our firefighters and police officers and paramedics, but we have confirmed fentanyl in our communities. So one that we're talking about a lot because it can be very impactful, not only for those that are choose to use it, but also for first responders. So yeah, that's what that number is. So Bruce and I will kind of tag team this one. This is really the core of, I think, what the resolution asked of us, and I think this gives a quick snapshot, and we can sort of roll through a few of those. But
sure, I'll start off with the Community Street Crime Unit. So we have a dedicated unit within our county that detectives under supervision of a detective sergeant work strictly on enforcement and occurrences involving property crime, occurrences involving drug investigations. And they're dedicated full-time to all our 7 municipalities within the county. And they do a lot of good work, lots of different search warrants they've done in various communities across the county, and try to keep those that are active at bay as best we can.
So that's probably the single biggest piece. Councillor Elliott, when you asked there, that's a sort of a what we would deem, or I'll say the public would know as an undercover unit. That's what it speaks of when we talk about street crime unit. You won't know who they are, and you won't know the vehicles they're driving, but they're absolutely proactive and ahead of, sort of try anyways to be ahead of what's happening out there. Huge amount of work that gets done from that unit. Community mobilization engagement, that's us being here today, really. That's just us working with all of our partners. We can't do this by ourselves. I think the communities know that. I think this room knows that. Mayor and council knows that. And if we aren't working together, it's going to be an uphill battle for us. So that's really the essence of community mobilization engagement. It's a bit of a claim phrase that's going around the province, but I have to tell you, former warden Mayor Bridge knows all about how we work and how we collaborate on everything. And if we don't, we're in trouble. And so that's a sense of where that needs to be and why we need to continue doing that, because as I've said publicly, the world's getting a little weirder by the day, and it's getting tougher out there to manage some of these new things that are coming at us. So, but we're proud of what we do in Wellington County and with who we partner with and working together with. And I think your fire chief would attest to that. So,
the next one on the list there is drug recognition experts. So currently we have a couple of members trained in our county and another one just about to start his training. And that's that in conjunction with our standard field sobriety test officers, which we have, I think we're getting over 40 trained there at this point. And a lot of them being trained this year because of the October 17th date approaching, that we want to be ready for the vehicles on our motoring highways to detect and work on investigations involving drivers that have been under the influence of drugs. So, as I said, 2 of them right now, and the third one is just starting his training, and that includes going to Jacksonville, Florida for a part of their training. So we try to keep up on that. Plus, in anticipation for October 17th, we've got a number of officers trained on the standard field sobriety testing to help us with our roadside enforcement.
Yeah, so for those in the room that don't know what SFST, standard field sobriety testing, that's just your walk the straight line, sort of the finger to nose, those sort of tests that we do on the roadside. They're formalized across the country now. You may see it on the U.S. television stuff, but they're formalized now, and they are a piece of what we have to work into building our case for those on the roadside that we may detect with alcohol or drug impairment. So as Bruce said, we always used to do some level of it, but not in a standardized format, and now we're standard, and we're building those that capacity within our service. So, we're getting close to halfway through all of our members being trained in that aspect, as Bruce said, and the DRE, the drug recognition, as Bruce also commented, one of our members is an instructor in the province. So we are in good standing when it comes to our ability to deal with drug impaired driving. The dedicated school officer, youth resiliency, and HT, human trafficking, really the comment there I wanted to make was just we are embedded in our high schools with our high school liaison officers, an absolute critical piece to dealing with our youth and breaking down those barriers that we'd all would expect to see between law enforcement and our community. But where it leads to the resolution before council was just about, we're dealing more with mental health and addiction in our communities. So we're seeing the same thing in our high schools. So we're on the front end of it with when you talk about our school resource officers and being able to assist the school, clearly deal with the students on the front end and help divert them and come up with creative ways with the school boards to address whatever drug and or addiction issues that are arising. And human trafficking is in our community. There's no two ways about that. there are people that are being preyed upon and forced into the sex trade, and that's hasn't been a secret at county council. And we've had presentation by our one of our members is key in talking about human trafficking. She's kind of our go-to, and we've trained her in a number of areas dealing with HT. So
the next segment there, the federal drug prosecutor in our courts. So back up to our street crime units, when they lay a break and enter charge, they liaise with the provincial crown attorney. When they lay a drug charge, that is operated by the federal government, so they deal with the federal crown attorney. So our search warrants, where we do a place where there's a grounds for possession for the purpose of trafficking charges, our street crime units work hand in hand with the federal prosecutor to put the best case forth they can. Thing called case law dictates a lot of what we have on the go, and we got to make sure we play within the rules. But we want to make an impact in the community. We make sure the federal prosecutor is on board with us and puts his best forward foot as well. The example of that was this February. We did a warrant here in Minto, excuse me, and as a result of that warrant, the main person on that, the federal prosecutor was on board, and that fellow pled out to a 5-year sentence fairly early on. So we found that to pay dividends when you get them embedded with us at the start. Certainly helps us try to get the message out there that we don't want that in our community.
And then our own canine program we're proud of, and we've had for many years, actually before I got here, and thanks to the Police Services Board and County Council. But we have our own canine within Wellington, and our canine Timber, who does a number of tracks for us, is trained to detect levels of narcotics, firearms, explosives, things like that. But having our own canine program within the County of Wellington has served us very well, and is another piece of our puzzle that we use to deal with some of our drug crimes in the community.
Next part on there is technology. As Scott and I maybe came on in the 80s at some point, in technology that's advanced to this day and age is just unreal. But we do keep in tune with trying to keep up as much as we can with the social aspects of our technology. The UAV, the drone, is for a lot of people use that. We use that on many investigations to help us with aerial photographs, and also for if they need to, not that they happen as often, but outdoor grows, they could be a use to us that way. A couple of the important parts there, the personal protection, PPE, as Chief Harrow knows so too well, that's something that our officers are equipped now with naloxone, and when they go to scenes that they don't get cross-contamination. So we want to make sure we look after our own as well as the public as well. The other part there, the ion scanners. Some of these drugs that we're seizing at search warrants or come across, even in a death investigation, we're not really sure what they are. We think we know, but the ion scanners is a new device that's just came out to us here in this year, that we have one dedicated to West Region, and they're a godsend to help us to confirm what kind of drug we're dealing with.
Yeah, so you may have seen something like similar. If anybody's watched the U.S. television, they see the border services, and they have that scanner, and they just take a little bit of a sample and they put it in the scanner, and it tells you what the breakdown of the narcotic is. That's what the ion scanner is. Partnerships, we kind of talked about, just the list there. I just kind of wing through this in the interest of time. So I talked about partnerships. The analytical piece, Bruce commented on. It's the only way we can do business nowadays is, identify our trends, right place, right time, putting our people in the right locations to address the right issues. And that's really how we deploy our resources every day. We can't just go willy-nilly anymore. And I know the municipality would do the same, whether it's public works, fire, any of their programs. You gotta know what you're dealing with and then address it accordingly. Crime abatement is a program that we deal with, where we follow up with offenders that are out on bail. So we have a program internally where we address those that are on bail to make sure that they're playing within the rules of their release. So that's another piece that we can address in terms of those that may be on bail for any kind of drug-related offenses. And the confidential informant program has been around for many years, but we certainly subscribe to it in our community, and we very much use the confidential informant program, which is really just using citizens from our community that care to tell us things that we want to know that help us solve crimes, and they get into this program more formalized. And if they don't choose to get into the program, there's always Crime Stoppers that's available. But we cultivate informants. We work with them, people who want to talk to us, and that's an important piece. So that's just a quick snapshot. And Clerk White there, I'll just get you to spin through these because these are just kind of expand on what we just talked about. Crime Stoppers.
One of the ones that we went through there, our impact team was kind of the couple more back. Thanks, Clerk White. We have 3 clinicians working with us, as some of you may have heard. So certainly the calls for service that we utilize them and the use of drugs sometimes cross paths, and they're a great tool for us to utilize to help give them people the resources they need and hopefully get them on the right path. So I just wanted to make a comment about our impact team, how valuable to the community they are.
Yeah, you'll probably get to the cannabis there. So there's cannabis. Do you want me to just kind of, do I have time, Mayor, to kind of go through a few things?
Sure. No, we'll take the time.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a big issue.
Yeah.
A lot of the debates.
Okay, so just to set the stage, this is evolving, I think, as the audience and council is aware. This is changing almost weekly in terms of what the provincial government is saying and sharing with us. But we, as I said publicly last week in the local paper, are we ready? I think we're ready. Law enforcement and the OPP certainly in Wellington County is ready. I don't think society and municipalities are ready, and I say that with great respect, total respect. It's just we're not sure what it's going to look like really quickly. We're going to find out though, and Bruce and our team will have to address that, and we'll be that call of first resort, I call it. We'll be those people that will get called on odor complaints. We'll get called on too many plants. We'll get called on neighbors are seeing kids playing with the plants in the backyard. We're going to get called with noise. We're going to get called with all of the things that we can fathom based on this. And so, are we ready? Yeah. But are we really ready as a greater? I don't think so. My opinion only, not no one else's, I'm sure, but or at least that would stand up here and say that. So there's a number of things based on that. I won't go through all of them, but it's just the feds set the sort of the structure, and then the province can weigh in, which they have to address more provincial issues for us around ticketable offenses. They've actually raised the age to 19. Provinces allowed to do that. The feds have talked about 30 grams and those types of things. So all of that I think you're seeing and hearing in the media is really what's almost on one slide there, but it's a way more than just what's written in terms of how we see it unfolding in our communities. But we're alive to it in terms of our members. There's a bunch of training that has to be done, certainly by all of our officers. That'll be done by, is already being done by some of the things Bruce talked about, field sobriety testing, online training. We're waiting on educational pieces from the government, as you would expect, as we are hoping that they will educate, all of us as a greater community. So the online stores that was up there, just that's that change from Liberals to the Progressive Conservative Party. So now effective the 17th, it'll only be the online ability to purchase legal seeds and or product from the online fashion, and then they're talking about April of next year before there's the ability for retail stores, which I'm sure council has talked about in terms of your municipalities and the opt-in, opt-out piece for yeah.
Maybe if I could just, as we received this information, I believe this week, and so we haven't talked a lot about opting in or opting out, but what we have talked about to the candidates for the election and to this council and to our staff is a process by which we would get to a decision at that point. So what's scheduled is the new council will have a report on December 18th outlining sort of the nuts and bolts of what we can and can't do as a municipality. We have a council meeting around January 8th, and likely we will give notice to the public and ask them to come to our meeting and provide some feedback to the council. And then January 22nd would be the next meeting. I think at that point we would have to make a decision to comply with their time frame and send the resolution down that day to them so that they have our, whether we're opting in or opting out. One of the issues we have is, from what we've gleaned from the legislation so far, is that if we have a producer like we expect to have here with Krasinski Enterprises, that they may be entitled to an outlet. And if that's the case, I don't think we'll be able to totally opt out. And but we'll look at that. But I wondered if January 8th, someone from your office would be willing to attend and participate in that meeting, provide information, and help us through this. And I guess the question is, do you have anything else from any of the other Wellington municipalities as to what they're doing?
This is a great question. First of all, yes, we would absolutely be willing to assist in any way we can. I think at least by January we'll have had a month and a half-ish or whatever, a couple months to kind of see what's unfolding before our eyes. So I'm not sure about the other municipalities. I talked to one of the CEOs just this morning who are almost of the same mind that your council is in terms of the timing and election, and the timing is pretty tight to get everything done and still do some public consultation, in fairness. So yeah, so that's a big decision to make, and there's certainly going to be both sides of that argument. There's no doubt about that. But in the meantime, this is what we're all going to have, and the online piece for sure. So we talked about here just. I was at my own conference a couple weeks ago where this was a major piece. Our organization has a whole committee dedicated just to cannabis legalization and what it's going to look like for us, and give us consistent messaging, and because it's just changing quickly. So really the very first bullet speaks to why I'm here today, and just got asked to come again on January the 8th. So we just we need to keep working together, because this is new for all of us, and we can't. We got to work through it as a collective. The fact about bylaws and things like that. I mean, you just pinned a badge on.
Yeah, he's looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think he's long gone now after. But that those are all things that have to be looked at in terms of bylaws and enforcement, and where does that land, and there's no sense, again, in my respectful opinion, creating bylaws that aren't enforceable. So that's so new and emerging for this whole legalization piece, and the bottom bullet speaks to what bylaws are already in place that the municipality has, and in terms of noise and things that can help maybe keep things under wraps as best we can as a community. So yeah, lots to think about there.
Well, I think the one that really caught us by surprise was just the announcement that originally we thought you would have to be in your own home or whatever, and now it's wherever you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah,
that's going to be the biggest one that I think we're going to have an issue with, and maybe we have to look at it county-wide as well. And I'm at Public Health tomorrow. It's on our agenda tomorrow because, as you know, part of the smoking regulations, they were in charge of doing the provincial bylaws and enforcement, but they have very little amount of people. And we're hoping that that money that the feds sort of said we're going to 25%, that I hear you're doing some training and all that stuff. But that's the issue I think we're going to have a big issue with. And you'll have a bit of an idea of that, Scott and Bruce, because it'll be up and running for a little while from the 17th, to see how people do react to walking around the streets. Are they going to be, and you know, to be fair, most smokers I find are very understanding, and they don't blow smoke in people's faces and all that stuff. But then we're going to add a whole bunch of more people to this, possibly that maybe don't have that same etiquette. I'm not sure. When they're allowed to do what. So that is my concern. Yeah. And it's interesting you talked about that. Where does that fall? Does it fall as a bylaw? Does it fall as something your officers do, or we have to do it, or public health has to do it? There's a lot of gray area out there.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor, 100%. That's.
So we'll have to come together.
That's what we got to work out
together on it to make sure we have the right solution.
Yeah, and one that is relatively, I know it's individualistic in terms of the member municipalities, but the county there's a piece in here that fits the county. There's a piece in here for us. There's, there's just so many parts that we have to get straight for sure.
Sure, we're gonna have some questions. Did you want to finish?
Yeah, do you mind then?
I'm sorry, that's my fault. I should have jumped in.
These last couple slides are, and Bruce, you want me to take this one, or
yeah, go ahead. No,
these last two are probably get right to the nitty gritty. So really, we've said this as an organization. We have to have policies and standards and regulations in place. I'm not saying we're all going to have them clearly by the 17th, but going forward, we've got to be consistent with how we're going to deal with this as the the law enforcement piece. One of the concerns, or one of the pieces, is the 30 grams legal piece, and then what's 30 grams look like when it's, I'll say, more than 30 grams. So what is it if Bruce and I come upon somebody who's legally allowed to possess 30 grams of marijuana? How do I know that's 30 grams? Well, I can tell you the OPP aren't going to issue me a little portable scale that I'm going to set the baggie on. There's a whole issue around that, evidentiary, calibration of the scale, all those things that cost. So the OPP and all agencies got to figure out how to determine what 30 grams would look like for the street officers to understand. And then the other piece is, right now, the province hasn't given us, because the federal government has allowed the province to manage the provincial piece of the legislation, and we don't have ticketable offenses yet. And we were hoping for that to come in line with October 17th, but that's not happening. So right now, I'm saying, Bruce and I are saying to our members, discretion, discretion, discretion. Because if I think under bullet number 1, somebody has 50, 60 grams on them, and I'm suspecting that, but I can't necessarily prove it right away. We're saying, like, we're going to set bad case law, as Bruce talked about. That's what guides us in our court system. If we set bad rules and then that becomes law, then we're bound by that forever. So we need our members to use some discretion around that. So the bullet number 2. There's still the medical piece. None of us have talked about that. There's a medical cannabis piece that has absolutely been out there and is legal right now. So you mix, now I shouldn't say mix, but now a medicinal cannabis user who has a card from Health Canada that says they're allowed to have a certain quantity can now also add 30 grams in their pocket and be legal. So, that's, we got to sort through those things. Storage of cannabis is going to be one of our bigger challenges in our world. And Chief Harrow will see some of the other things down below in the home cultivation part. But so if we seize a fairly large quantity of cannabis, we have to concern ourselves with storage, proper ventilation. We have to concern ourselves with mold. We have to concern ourselves with the court saying, no, they're allowed to have it back. Well, now it's no good because it's now moldy in my vault. So what's that look like? Because I can't give moldy cannabis back So all of those things have to be addressed, and I know I'm probably creating more questions than answers, but there are things that we need to talk about and we need to work through. Yield amounts, 4 plants per household is a big yield. Those plants can yield lots and lots. Don't kid yourself. So yield amounts for 4 plants, 24/7, 365 is some big yield. Exposure to youth, sorry, Bill, just a couple. The exposure to youth, that's going to spike our calls for service. Plants are growing on somebody's back porch. Their 5-year-old and their 7-year-old are goofing around the plants. Neighbor sees them, calls the police. They're going to get contaminated. They're playing. I saw them picking at it. They were putting their fingers in their mouth. That's going to be a big call for service for us, no doubt. Smell is going to be a big call for service. Certainly, smell just from growing plant, not necessarily smoked plant. And then Chief Harrell is going to have to concern himself, as with us, with fire and mold. Fire and mold is going to be a concern in homes. We will not know what's behind the walls of anybody's home unless we're there for a lawful purpose. So if we think, and legally there's 4 plants, if there's 40 plants there or 400 plants there, we won't know. We don't know now, but now we know that everybody's allowed to grow 4 per household. There are mold and fire issues around that. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Concentrates, yeah, that's another. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So we anticipate people are going to try and create what street slang is shatter, or the high concentrated resins that come from cannabis. If you cook it, you can get this high concentrated resin, which is 30-40% more potent than legal cannabis from your online store. So we anticipate, and Chief Harrow and I have had these discussions, that people who are going to cook and compress cannabis to make shatter, or this kind of like toffee. It's kind of like a toffee substance. What comes from that is explosions, fire, self, harm, if you will, inadvertently, which is going to challenge all of us in that aspect. So we know that's going to happen because the government has said resins and edibles are not on the table right now. So calls for service, I talked about. Prosecution, case law. That's really the lack of awareness, as Bruce talked about. And then Bruce can finish off. This is kind of like, what do we all have to know as employers? What does the town need to consider, and I'm sure has, and like there's some things there that I know we're considering as an organization. So
yeah, and I'll just kind of read off there. That's self-explanatory. That we've had the chats around the office, as many others, where operation of employees operating vehicles or whatnot, and even on our highways, is back to the SFST and drug recognition part. How do you go about detection and testing of those, and the work performance that goes along with that? So lots of different challenges we can see unfolding with the human resource part of it all, and that akin to also the disciplinary actions that go on in attendance and the medical exemptions that they may have as well. So those are some of the things that are being talked about and trying to address with us as well.
Yeah, so that should be, I think, the end of it. So I guess I'll wrap up by saying, and I said it publicly last week, we're ready. Like, despite the challenges that we saw there, like, we understand there's going to be challenges. Mayor and council understands that. I'm not so sure the community does, though. That's the piece that I mean, where we're ready, but the greater community isn't ready, because it's just going to be, there's so many questions. There's questions about employment. There's questions about the border. There's questions about quantity. There's questions about, this being legalized to try and curtail the illegal market. Well, the illegal side of the ledger may well get into the legal business. Like, so, we want to get this back out of our use and get it controlled. And yet, if it's taxed too much, we may well keep it in the black market. So but we understand all these things. How we address them as a collective and as mayors and councils and working with us is the only way we're going to sort of mount the challenge on this. We are ready in terms of drug impaired driving. We don't have we haven't as an organization made a purchase of a roadside piece of testing equipment. We obviously can do that for breath or for alcohol, but not for drug impairment yet. And there's an Attorney General has approved a roadside screening device called a non-invasive. It's saliva test. You get a bit of saliva and you put it in the instrument, and it will detect nanograms per milliliter of blood. We haven't purchased one as an organization. There's only one that's been approved by the federal government, and I'm hearing more and more major services are opting out of that only approved instrument at this point. Vancouver and a number of major services for reasons that are out there publicly. So we haven't purchased one, but when I say we're ready, do we need that roadside instrument to detect a drug impaired driver? Absolutely not. We have SFST, we have well-trained members, we have drug recognition experts. When they go through that process, they can demand blood or urine, and then those results are pretty much irrefutable. So we're ready in that aspect. We would like more tools in the toolbox, but I think as long as we're working together with mayor and council and whoever after election time, I think we'll be in good standing that way. But we expect some increase in calls. There's no doubt about it. Just people not knowing, and our members need to go there with some discretion right now until we see this unfolding. And then there's always the criminal piece that we can tidy things up with. If there's criminal charges laid or committed, then we can address those. We have since Sir Robert Peel. So anyways, questions, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
So I have several questions. I come from a nursing background. Is there a limit? Is there a blood limit level that they've decided is harmful? With alcohol, we have a level. The Draeger, I understand, is a very unreliable piece of equipment. So I don't know how many people are going to use that. Do your sobriety tests work equally for drug? I'm not a drug user myself, so I don't enjoy the feeling when I've had to take drugs for medical reasons. So I'm not sure but I know officers are being trained to do roadside testing, so that's part of my issue. The possession part, where they can have as much as they want in their house, we limit to 4 plants, but basically they could bring in as much. And the illegal growers aren't going to disappear. They're just going to find a way to sell the product legally now. I assume, anybody who wants marijuana now can get it. It's not that difficult. So my children have informed me over the years. I've never tried to get it myself, but they didn't seem to have any issues. And the public smoking. If they can smoke it anywhere that they can smoke cigarettes now, they shouldn't be smoking it too many places, but we can smoke 9 meters from most buildings. Are they allowed to smoke marijuana there? Because it's going to be wafting into the buildings, and the 9 meters become shorter and shorter and shorter because all of the ashtrays are attached to the buildings in the majority of cases. So the 9 meters becomes very, very short. And I've watched parents drive up, and I share your sentiment about bylaws. There's no point putting a bylaw in place if we are not able to enforce it. We have one bylaw officer, and you guys are busy doing your own things. So who's going to chase these people? And I've watched people at the park where there's a sign saying, please don't smoke in a park, there's children playing, and they light up their cigarette. What's going to stop them from lighting up marijuana? And then I'm going to have an issue with it. Because I make a choice not to smoke. I will make a choice not to smoke marijuana. I don't want to have it imposed on me because somebody else has decided that it's their civil right now to indulge wherever they feel like indulging. So I know that's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're about one G.
Many comments.
Yeah.
No,
It's a
but
four-parter.
those are most of them are comments.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The nanograms per milliliter, we're waiting to get the final. So the province is setting those legal limits, and as you know, I think in terms of alcohol, we're one of the more restricted provinces in Canada where we don't tolerate. Our limits are quite tight in terms of alcohol, but we're waiting for that for those nanograms per milliliter because it's all tied. It will be all tied to that that roadside tester. And while there's one been approved, we haven't even adopted it anyways. And then the other challenge that I would say just with respect to that, we have to train 6,900 frontline members on how to use that instrument.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't going to happen in 24 hours.
Yeah, if they have a loophole with the testing, they'll use it.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Commenting just on, on the public places wherever tobacco you can now do the cannabis smoking. Like, took me by surprise too when that was announced last week. The other thing that I find with cannabis is it's quite a pungent odor. It permeates. It's on your clothes. It just gets in everywhere. And any of us that have, certainly in our world, you can tell somebody who, like, you just smell it on them when they walk by, whether it was currently illegal or not. So the possession in your home more than 30 grams, the yield is one concern I have, and secondly is you can possess as much as possible in your home, as long as it's not packaged for distribution or sale, like parted out and trafficked.
And how do you know that, other than it's being in little bags?
We'll never know unless we're lawfully allowed in a home for any reason, any lawful reason. Then we would never know. Never know. Chief Harrell won't know until the mold's growing, and then somebody gets sick.
Or our street crime may become aware because of members of the public come forward as an informant saying there's more than just personal use there, and then they can address an investigation and hopefully, if that's the case, find it that possession for the purpose of trafficking. That's where they'll look into an investigation that way. One of the other concerns is we talked about the nanograms that go. It's astounding to me how many impaireds for alcohol happen early morning hours. Like people after 2 a.m. get up after 2 or 3 hours sleep and they're still under the influence. It's going to be compounded with the nanograms because it takes that much more longer for cannabis to get out of someone's system. So we're kind of had many discussions about that and are tuned with that as well. So,
including the last piece to that, sorry, I know you got it, is just, cannabis alone is one issue. Cannabis mixed with alcohol, and prescription drugs is another whole cocktail that will be that much more difficult for us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming here, and it's very informative for us, and I'm sure for our community. They're going to look on TV and get a chance to see what you guys are doing. I fully expected everything. And that's why I wanted you to come here, because people don't realize what you people are doing and what you're attempting to do. I want to get back to you guys doing a great job, and we arrest people and you follow up on many leads, and you probably know who the culprits are. And when you get the good arrest, you go after them and you bring them in. My story is, and what I'm hearing from people is that after the arrest, when they go to court, slap on the hands, no matter whether it's fentanyl, no matter what marijuana, no matter what the drug, slap on the hands, back out in the street. You guys got to go through months of surveys again and bring that same person back in. Is there anything we can do? Is there anything the government can do? Do we need strengthened laws? What do we need to keep these people off the street? Or to help you guys?
Wow, that's a big question. No, but I no disrespect. That we just had that discussion before we came upstairs here. I guess the standard answer is our local MPPs and and our voices at AMO and places like that. But it's a system that we bring the best possible product before the courts, and then it's up to the courts to prosecute it and the defense to defend it. And we always are cognizant of, and our goal is to bring that best case forward. How quickly they may end up back out on the street is, I'm going to say, kind of out of our control, unfortunately. And I know that's probably not the answer you wanted, but that's kind of how the system, that's our democratic system that we have. Is it frustrating? Sure it is. Yeah, it's absolutely frustrating.
I think your point, though, is from a local council standpoint, we can put pressure on our our organizations, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and AMO, to do more about on the criminal side. Some of it is lack of enough courts and other things that people get off because they don't get their cases looked at, and there's some funding issues and all that stuff. And I think again, and I think we know that you try to put the best case forward, Scott, but at the end of the day, we still have a legal system that has to tighten up, I think, and then it goes back to social conscience, and that's what worries me. One thing about marijuana being legalized, and we know it was already there, so maybe it'll be better. The kids won't get it laced with stuff and whatever. But there is a lot of issues, and I think it goes back to our society and trying to get our society, our young people, to understand there's problems if you do these things. But yeah, mental health is another issue, and we've talked about that, you and I, many times. A lot of our drug users are using drugs because of mental health issues, and unfortunately, our mental health system is not where it should be. So I know you have your impact team, you have your mental health people embedded. That's helped a little bit, and we've got some people that got help over it. But we have to push from our council, Ron, and I think from the county and through public health is to push harder at getting more mental health workers out there, that we can get these things. Because I think if we can stop that usage of drugs as sort of their crutch, which causes the problem in some cases, it's a mental health issue, and then the drugs are a way of self-medicating, and of course they go stupid and have all these tragedies that we've had, and suicides and all the other things.
Mayor Bridge, is there currently, or will there be, a website that individuals will be able to go to find legalities, find who to call when, and what they do in certain circumstances in regards to cannabis?
I understand that's a promise that the provincial and federal government have made, more provincial, to have a website to go to. I think on my slide deck I showed there was if you have it on your file there, but there is a website you can go to that'll talk to the different pieces. Yeah, I've shown it on there. So, and again, remembering, like, my slide deck's already outdated from when I submitted it, because it talked about no public places, and that's changed already. So it's something we all have to keep current on right up to the very moment of the 17th of October. So
thanks for coming in. They know it's a problem that we have to work together. I think we said it many times, with all levels of government and other social services. So we'll have those opportunities to have that debate, and I'm glad you're coming back on what was the date? January 8th for the next council, to get some public input. And I know there were some people out in the public who maybe want to ask questions today, but we'll have opportunities for that. And if you have any questions in the public, let us know, send them in to us, and we'll try to get back to you on those questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. And we're always available to in any public setting to speak, whether it's at our high schools or at a community event, or we're learning on the fly as this goes too. So as long as we're all together, as you say, we'll in a couple of years this will be old hat. Just right now, it seems very daunting. So thank you. I hope we didn't take too much of your council time. So
it was important to have it out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, our next our next delegation is our fire trainer, and Charles, come on up. And is Chris coming up with you? No, or he's like he's moving towards you there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just gonna see your.
Okay, good.
He's not gonna say anything. Okay.
No, it's great, and I don't know a lot of people, and you might get into this, Charles, but this is something that the county put together a few years back.
Correct.
To have a county trainer.
Right.
That's certainly been a big boom for us. I know Chris has been very supportive of it in the fire department, because training is such a big issue with our fire department. I don't think people realize that you train is the same as a full-time fireman.
Correct.
And it's really amazing what we do on training. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can.
Part of the purpose of showing up is I'm the new county
I knew.
fire training officer.
You're probably familiar with John Carn. I replaced him. He's now deputy chief at Center Wellington. My background is I came from town of Erin. I was the chief training officer there. Still work there as well. I have 15 years of experience in firefighting and training of firefighters. Professionally, I'm a mechanical engineer. So it's not like we rule the world or anything like that. But
Well, we have one of those sort of.
yeah, okay.
We won't hold that
We won't hold it against.
Good enough. Yeah. What Linda Dixon had asked me to do is put together a summary. I had produced the report for all our fire chiefs. The document that you have on your deck there is just a summary of what I've been up to. So it's quite simple. We've got a library of lesson plans that the county training officers make use of. So I'm just in the process of updating those. We had a curriculum change fairly recently, so it's a matter of updating those. I won't go through and read all this stuff for you. One of the bigger things that's happened with the previous government, they changed the Fire Prevention and Protection Act, and it changed the requirements for certification for firefighters in Ontario. It required that you had a certain number of qualifications completed, and then you were, a qualified firefighter. The one good thing is when we created this county training mechanism or model, we were pretty well on track with that from the very beginning. So there are a few little backfill things that we need to do to kind of come on board with that. With the change in government, the Ford government has said they may put this on the shelf, but we are, as a county, we're going to continue to go down that path with having our firefighters trained to that new mandatory level. So that's kind of where we're at with our certification. Next up is we just completed our 2018 recruit class. We had 24 recruits from throughout the county. They've gone through their online training is a component that they take care of. They do roughly 100 hours on their own time, and then I have them for 100 hours where they come in on weekends and Saturday, Sundays, and we make use of the training staff throughout the county and get them trained to another. So they spend another 100 hours there. They completed an exam, their first set of exams in July. Success rate there was about 85%. Some guys need to do a little better job, but that's schooling. And again, these are all volunteers. They've got a full-time job somewhere else, so they do put in a large amount of time and effort to get there. Our next set of exams is in November 3rd. From there, we would basically have our qualified firefighters available to our departments. One component that we have added is we've incorporated a level 1 PTSD training seminar for the recruit firefighters. All the firefighters in the county have gone through that, but as our recruits come through our program, they're exposed to that as well. What I did this year is we tagged on a spousal seminar so that the excuse me, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is, has some idea of if they have a problem at home that they think is related to PTSD. There's a mechanism that we can help that family out. So I think training is going on very well. We're also doing higher level training, so we'll try and train our company officers. Again, available time is a factor that all our chiefs face in terms of that. There is a county training officers website, and I'm in the process of revamping that, and I'm also going to bring in the fire prevention, our CISM or peer support group, and give them space on that just for training materials. Instead of them creating another website, we're just going to use mine and piggyback on that. Local training developments, I think Chris has been kind of spearheading some of that. We're bringing in higher level fire training courses. So again, so we can up the education level of our company officers, our fire prevention individuals, so that we have just a higher level of education available to our departments going forward. So we'll do that training again. It's kind of in conjunction with the recruit training. but it's done in a separate calendar. The biggest change that we're looking at right now for the entire Wellington County is a driver certification program. I'm not sure if you're aware of the MTO changed the AZ, which we don't have AZ vehicles, but they changed the way that you could acquire an AZ license, made it more restrictive. What we're seeing, or what we think is going to happen in the future, is they're going to do the same thing with a DZ license, which firefighters need to drive our equipment. So we're looking at bringing that level of training into the departments so that we can do driver training and grant licenses and do our renewals. So again, it saves time for the individuals who need to go and get this done. It provides, again, just consistency in training like we have with our firefighter training, and it should just reduce some costs and probably produce better drivers. There's an MTO component of it, so we will be under the guise of the MTO. We will have to apply for this program. They will have to approve our program, and then we can push that into the community. I don't think we'll get that done till probably late in 2019. It just takes some time to get this done, get individuals trained up as instructors. But I'm hoping that this should happen fairly shortly. The next section there is just major projects that I'm working on. I don't need to go through all that for you because I've kind of given you that little rundown there. The other, just wanted to follow up on maybe if you got any questions on that, I can deal with them. But just to follow up on what Scott said about cannabis, and he's, I guess, indicated what the effect might be to the police services. There was an article in the Advertiser last week. I got asked similar questions. You'll see that, I think, probably this week, about how is cannabis going to affect the fire department. I would suspect that we are going to just see more incidents occurring, more impairments, either alcohol or cannabis, and it's going to just increase our runs for service. Usually when we go to incidents like that, like an auto incident where alcohol is involved, it's usually a traumatic. So we're going to end up exposing our service members or providers maybe to a higher level of traumatic stress. But again, I think we've prepared ourselves with that. Again, going back to what we've talked about with giving PTSD training to our individuals and our spouses, we may be a little better prepared for that. And I think on the other side of that is, as this comes out into your communities, people who are going to grow in their homes need to do it properly. They need to wire their houses properly. They need to not, be careless about how they're doing it, because that's just going to raise another issue of, are we out to, fire, smoke, and nuisance calls. So I would suspect that we will see our runs throughout the community increase. Not substantially, but I don't know what that number might be, but I would suspect we will see an increase in our incidents of related to cannabis. Anything with that, Chris?
No, it's yet to be determined. I agree. There's a lot to answer. So we'll just play it by ear and see what happens.
So I think in encompassing, I think we're as best prepared as we can be. We train our individuals to a level of first aid care. It's not really going to change our fire suppression tactics all that much. We may see a little more on the hazmat side, but when Scott was talking about shatter, it's going to also generate waste that you end up seeing that on the side of the road. Somebody just wants to get rid of it, don't want to deal with it properly, and that's where you could see an increase in your runs for service. So I'm not sure if you have any questions relating to fire training or.
I should have turned it over to my deputy mayor. He's in charge of fire.
Okay, sure.
Well, first of all, Officer Hamilton, thank you for taking the time to comment. It's a very efficient report. The part that kind of hit me a little bit was the DZ portion. I just read an article the other day that in the United States they're short 60,000 drivers with the Z endorsement.
Okay.
And I would hate, I don't know how many in Canada, but I know there's companies that can't get drivers. So this, I worry a little bit about this because I think MTO are perhaps making rules that they haven't done the full research on how much it's going to affect us. And I'm a believer in educating good drivers, but it does concern me.
Okay, maybe I can sway your concern with that. We're working on a model that Huntsville Fire has used for a number of years. They already have this program in place. There are a number of fire departments, like larger municipal fire departments, that run their own DCP program just because it's easier for them to manage their.
Sure.
It really comes down to the training that we're going to provide to drivers. I'm not saying that now we don't do a good job of it, but there will be a number of hours that will be required for a driver to have before they can sit or do their road test and be granted a license.
Thank you. Any questions from council? First of all, again, thank you for coming. And there's a recommendation that council receives the Wellington County Fire Training Officers Report for January to September of 2018 for information. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All in favor? I declare that motion carried. Turn that back to you, Mayor.
We're at public question period. Public questions. Moving into correspondence then. Correspondence, anybody want to pull anything out of correspondence? I didn't have anything. No. Make a motion to accept correspondence. Councillor Churton, Deputy Mayor Faulkner, all in favor? Okay. Committee reports. We have the Cultural Roundtable, I believe. There she is right there. Welcome.
I'll be very quick.
Yeah.
We did not have quorum for this meeting, so basically we went over the plans for Culture Days weekend, which has happened just this past weekend. We had 15 events planned. Unfortunately, due to weather, only 13 went off, and we had about 277 attendees at those events. So would have been nicer if weather had cooperated this weekend, but what can you do? That's all I'm going to say.
I have the breakdown. Did you want to use that, or did
Nope, that's okay. Just trying to speed you along here.
Okay. All right.
So if no questions,
Faster than hockey.
Yeah. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Dirksen. All in favor? I want to get them in. They were a little bit like reluctant to put their hands up for some reason. I have no idea why. Parks and Rec.
Sure.
Oh, it's a tag team maybe, or is it? Or is Al going up and Matt? Thank you.
I'll let you stand, Matt.
So we'll try and be brief as well. There's 2 sets of minutes that we'd like to go through, one from June and one from last week. So essentially back in June, we talked about the busy summer ahead, and last week we looked at the busy summer that was.
Yeah, that was good.
Well covered.
So.
Okay, did you want me to speak first?
Sure.
Okay, there's just a couple of things I would like to highlight in the manager's report. First one being the renovation at the Harrison swimming pool went very well, and we are under budget on that project. We do have a motion from PRAC, hoping to have the extra monies forwarded next year, provided we get some community support to possibly build a splash pad feature where the old wading pool was. Very good. Is one thing. So I did have a conversation with Mike McIsaac, just in terms of renewing the grass cutting tender for an extra year, and we do have a motion from PRAC on that. So I thought that might be of interest if there was any questions or concerns.
Judy?
I would suggest there are definitely questions and concerns about the grass cutting tender. I'm curious whether, like I see what it says in here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess I'm just curious what the process will be. Will this still come before council, or would this, or could this just happen that this would just be an extension of the contract we have? Like, I wasn't sure what this meant.
Yeah, I think Bill, and I think for department heads, there's been some discussion, so maybe Bill
Okay.
can lighten you on that too.
That'd be fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
If I may, through you, Mayor Bridget, I think where this will come back to council is that budget. I think that the intent would be that there would be extra cuts included in the contract. One of the areas where we had some concerns was in the cemeteries, and we had talked about that with the contractor, and they're with notice they're able to include some extra cuts to increase the level of service. That would mean that the contract would cost more and would be a budget increase. So that's where council would have some feedback into this. But you would be, I guess, if by adopting this set of minutes with that recommendation, you would be committing to this contractor, but you would be determining the service level at the budget.
Okay. Another question?
Yep.
So by providing more cuts, is that just providing more opportunity to throw grass on tombstones then? Or,
Well,
like, I mean,
yeah.
that's the issue. I haven't heard any complaints in parks. So maybe, is there an opportunity to maybe separate it out somehow, or
And I
something?
think that was the general discussion, and the fact that when we did get the contractor to put the bag thing on or whatever the attachment was, mulching kit, but in fairness to the contractor, almost we probably underfunded it. So I think Bill, the way I heard it was they're going to come up with a different recommendations as to what things like extra trimming, some other things that they have to do, so that when that contract comes back at budget time, you may see quite a bit of an increase. But I think what we got from this council, got a lot of feedback, was I think people want you to spend the extra money to make sure it's done properly. And I think that's what we're talking about, Judy. I mean, I think part of it is you don't have just having another cut doesn't make a difference. You have to have a guideline as to what you expect the contractor to do, and then what that cost is that they're going to come back and say what it's going to cost us. And I think that's part of it. But I think it's totally different cutting a cemetery than a park.
I get that. So I guess that's why I was wondering if we might separate those two out, because like I said, I haven't really heard any complaints about parks. It's anything that I've heard has been about the cemeteries. And even I agree that early on in the season, when we talked about the mulching kits and we started using them, that was fantastic. But then even later, like several weeks later in the summer, all of a sudden there was grass all over the tombstones again. So there's obviously a disconnect someplace there. So
I'm wondering, because I don't think I think we'd like to have the contractor come back with the facilities people and the roads and drainage manager and talk to you about that particular part of the contract. So I'm wondering if you would receive these minutes and that recommendation, and that you defer the final decision on the grass contract until you hear something further from the contractor. And that would be the next council getting that information. So early in December or early January, I think one of those meetings we should have the contractor back with the staff, and maybe they can address particular current concerns that are raised here. So,
and I think one of the concerns is if we don't do this early days, whatever contractor we use, we have to give them enough notice, Judy, to make sure that they have the proper people in place to do it.
Yeah,
because that's what happened when we tried to go and say, well, we want to rectify it this year. But we found out that they had no capability to add more people because they didn't have any more staff.
Well, I know it's hard to find people.
And so we need to give whoever gets the contract, we need to let them know what we're looking for, what we expect, and they have to give us an idea of what the costs are going to be. So you're talking about another report into the next council. It'll be still in time for budgets, because this is a budget item, because you're going to increase your budget on this. I mean, I think, unless we decide not to, but I mean or whoever decides not to.
Okay, so just to be clear then, if we accept these minutes as they are, that doesn't tie us necessarily to a contractor, a specific contractor for grass.
I think Bill said.
Yeah, if I may, I think
does. Okay.
So
just if I may help here to try and move things along, because there's two sets of minutes. The first one, the June ones, I don't think has any issues.
No, there's nothing.
So perhaps you would want to adopt those ones.
All in favor? Okay, and this is the
So on the second one, I think, as I recall in the conversations with staff, is there's two issues. This one, and perhaps some issues related to the Clifford Ball Diamond. And on this one, then I would recommend that you receive the minutes that you require with regard to grass cutting. You ask for a report back as soon as possible from staff to the next council on the grass cutting, and that on the Clifford Ball Diamond, that you give direction to staff on whether or not to proceed with the work on the current Ball Diamond, which has been asked for by the CRA. So there's some residents there with some use questions and concerns about impacts of the diamond on people. But when that was brought forward to the CRA, they're adamant and they're paying for the work that they want to see done. And so I think council needs to give direction with these minutes on whether they want that work to proceed this year or not. So two issues. One, a report coming back to the new council on grass cutting. Two, direction on whether to proceed with the decking work at the Clifford Ball Diamond this year, which has been scheduled and approved and recommended and supported by the CRA and paid for by them too.
Okay, so I agree with that as far as it goes, but then I feel like there's a third issue about whether or not we're tied to the same grass contractors. Like I think the next council should have the opportunity to look at other options and decide those options very early in 2019, obviously, because things have to be put in place. Is that possible?
My intent was that you wouldn't be by adjusting the resolution requesting back on grass cutting, that you wouldn't be committing to that contractor by just approving these minutes.
Okay.
So you're not committing that you don't want them, but you want to report back on them.
Correct. Okay. Cool. Yep.
And as far as the Ball Diamond issue, I feel we can rectify what some of the concerns are. There's no need to delay the construction. The CRA is putting $46,000 into this to do a proper area that they can go down, the steps can go down, everything. That's their money that they raised, and I think we can deal with the couple of local people that are concerned about more of the lights and other things. And I cannot see us ever wanting to move that Ball Diamond. I just don't understand that happening. So I think we can proceed, if that's all right, if we have a motion that we can proceed with that and let them know, because they have a contractor lined up for the fall and they'd like to get it going. So I have a motion. Sure. Mayor Faulkner, seconder. Councilor Dirksen, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Deputy CAO White.
Yeah, we're going to get it right. We just got to get it right. Okay.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, there's not much more to say, aside from the fact that the first day of ice in Palmerston was September 10th, and ice will be in Clifford and Harriston just after Thanksgiving, Tuesday in Harriston, Wednesday in Clifford, and we'll be into the full ice season. So it's exciting.
Good. And the next up is your review. Really all in color. So we need to let you guys take that over. And
we're going to swap out Al for Grace here, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
So thank you, Mayor Bridge. We'll try and move through this quickly for the sake of time. Just want to have a quick look at the 2018 that was. And just want to review our online presence when it comes to booking, scheduling, invoicing, and program registration. Also, how things went at the pools, the day camp, and with some of our recreation programs. And then just see what's been happening at the Norgan Theatre. So just with respect to the online calendar, a quick recap. It was just over 2 years ago that we went from EventPro back to Keystone for booking, and we actually launched an online calendar that updates in real time. So as we put bookings in on the back end, people can see what's available on our website just through the rec page. And it's kind of neat because it also includes a booking request feature. So we'll just move ahead here. So essentially, you can pick from any of the facilities that we have available for rent, and then you can grab some detail. So for example, May 2018 at the Harrison train station, if you see a date that you'd like, you can just in the bottom right there's a button where you can submit a booking request. And the nice thing about that is it comes in to an email account that's monitored by Grace and myself. And what's nice is that when people look at the calendar, they see what's available, they request a date that's available. In the past, when we'd get that kind of cold call, Murphy's Law, they'd always want a date and time that was booked by somebody else. So this feature's been nice. We get we get requests weekly. It's nice to see. And then just a quick thought on central booking. So tied into all of this is that we have a central booker of the ice, halls and other rec facilities. With respect to ice, it's Greg Mallet that prepares the schedule. He did that last ice season, and he's doing that this ice season using our ice allocation policy. And what he's able to do, just by being able to see all three schedules, is we can minimize cancellations when we hold special events such as tournaments and 81s games. 81s are back this year after a 1-year break. And then what Grace and I do is we just book into the open slots that are available after kind of the block ice has been set. And we're typically quite busy around Christmas holidays for family skates. So I'll just turn it over to Grace to touch on our online registration real quick.
So this year we started online registration for day camp and for the pools, which has been really good about getting all of the parent information and all the child information. Our program registration has never been so complete with all of that in terms of names spelled correctly, birth dates, all of that. It also allows us on our end to make sure that we have everything filled out for what they would like to register for. So what day of the week, what lesson they might want to be in. Sometimes when you're on the phone, you miss that stuff. So this gives us the opportunity to make sure it's all complete. And when they do it online, they have to fill it all out completely before they can press submit. It won't allow them to submit the form. So that's kind of nice too. You're not missing anything. And then for our swimming lessons, because we switched over this year from Red Cross to Life Saving Society, it was also nice because along with when we sent back what they were registered for, we could send them a visual of what they were switching from. So I went from level 1 and now I'm going to swimmer 2 kind of thing, as opposed to just kind of saying it over the phone. You maybe don't understand quite as much when you're saying it on the phone versus getting a visual picture of level 1 to swimmer 2. So.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the online registration is that it's a form that you can complete and hit submit if you filled out all the fields. In some other municipalities, you've got to download a PDF, print it, fill it out by hand, scan it, or email it, or somehow get it back to their department. And with us, it's just great that you fill it out, you click submit, it comes into both of our emails, and then we get back within 24 hours. Just quickly about the pool, I know Al mentioned it earlier. We had that major renovation in Harrison, and it was completed in time to start our season in early June. The first program that we started with was Swim to Survive, and this year we actually also offered Swim to Survive Plus. So essentially, it's a program for current grade 3 and grade 7 students. We had 73 grade 3s, Palmerston and Middle Clifford combined, and 53 grade 7s come into that program. It's 3 1-hour lessons in the pool. The main goal of the program is to teach kids how to survive an unexpected fall into water. So they basically have to roll in, get their bearings, tread water, and swim a length of the pool. The grade 7s have to do that with clothing on, so it does weigh them down a bit more. We are still the only outdoor pool in Wellington County that offers this. Most of the others have the opportunity to go to Fergus, but with our kids, and I'm still not quite sure why, it'd be a question for the board, but if we don't offer it, then our kids don't get a chance to participate in it. And we've been doing it since 2015, so the cool part next year is that the grade 7s, they'll have taken it back in 2015 as a grade 3, so we'll see if they can repeat that, except they have to basically wear street clothes and see if they can. Yeah. Well, one major thing that we've seen at the pool in the last few years is a shift in demand from group lessons to private lessons. Whereas in the past, a lot of people wanted quantity, we're seeing that quality prevails today. Essentially, 5 lessons. You can usually get through what you need to from, say, levels 1 to 6, and then 7 up, you'd be looking at like 10 private lessons. But just in 5 years or 4 years, it's more than doubled in terms of the number of requests. So we've adapted our schedule accordingly. We still do session 1 the last 2 weeks of June. Those are group lessons. A lot of people like that, so they can get them kind of out of the way before summer holidays kick in. And we hosted the first swim meet of the swim team loop on July 14th in Harrison. It was a lot of fun. It was the first year that we had put my daughter in the program, and I got to give the lifeguards a lot of credit. There's a lot of moving parts to a swim meet, and they did a phenomenal job, as well as some of our parent volunteers. And then just quickly with day camp, we had another good year in terms of registrations. We streamlined our pricing and our registration process, and again, that was through the use of our online forms. We went swimming daily if the weather permitted, which is nice. We did 3 out-of-town trips. We went to Storybook Park, the Butterfly Conservatory in Cambridge, and we went to a water park near Brampton. And we also did 2 trips to the Norgan. And we also had, through the YMCA, a summer exchange student from Quebec in our Palmerston camp, and that was completely funded through YMCA. So it's sort of an English immersion program. And I won't do all these programs justice by glossing over them so quickly, but we spring programs, we had hockey wrap up in March. We had the Ball Hockey League, which we had more teams than last year. We had grassroots basketball, tried sports. You can see them all there. Pickleball just ended. We had another great season at Harrison. It's nice being able to have 4 courts on the curling club and not have to, move the nets or take the lines up. We can basically just set that and it stays in place. And our loyal shuffleboard group, I don't know if they'll be out there tonight. It's a little bit chilly, but they typically go right around until this time of the year, and we'll winterize the shuffleboard courts at the train station.
All right, so we had a busy year in 2018, kind of like our last few years. We started off with Jumanji, and that averaged about 100 a show, and then we had, I Can Only Imagine, do Outstanding as well. We actually ended up having it come back and do a couple weekday showings for some church groups. And then just recently in August, we had Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again for 3 weeks straight. The first 2 weeks actually averaged 100 a show. It did outstanding. Universal had talked to JD Lyons, who books our movies, and said, you guys have to have this a 3rd week. There's no way we can say no. Like, you've done outstanding. So that was a great way to end our summer into the fall. Our new digital sign that we've just installed past spring it's a great new toy for me. It's a great way to let our community know, as well as visitors to our community, what we can do at the theater, what we're showing. Just right now, all we can do, or we could do, was show what we were playing. Now we can show Film Fest, we can show Ladies Night, we can show our community movie, we can tell you what you need to know if you want to rent the theater. Where you can get passes if you want to get them for a Christmas present or a birthday present. We can do a ton with it, and it's great. We're on Main Street. Why wouldn't we have it, right? We've increased our school rentals, so I feel like every year the schools are contacting me with new ideas, whether it's through parent council, doing a fundraiser, or whether we just want to come down because we want to get out of the school. And with the different movies out, with Wonder and Hunger Games, we've had the schools contact us just because they want to come in and they want to have that opportunity for their students to have school trips. We've had schools from outside of Guelph come in and they do their end of year school trip. So they bring the students down to the theater for a movie in the morning, and then they head to the park after to do the splash pad. So that's kind of neat. We're getting outside schools from Minto. Yeah. Really good. And we also get a lot of schools from Mount Forest as well. Victoria Cross, they've come. I think they usually come about twice a year, so that's kind of nice. As well as the high school over Mount Forest, they've attended a few times. And then we have our annual live Christmas show. So last year we had Larry Mercy, and it did fairly well. I wasn't there for it because I was on mat leave, but this year we've got a variety Christmas show coming. Maggie Moore, her band, or her family band, the Moore Family Band, will be our starring act. That'll be December 6th, so I want to save the date.
Get your tickets.
So our fall and winter preview. So I'm going to touch a little on after school and PA day programs, and Matt will take care of the grassroots basketball and the skating. So our after school program, I think it started September 4th, and it's picking up steam. I got to say, we started off with a small group in September, but we've really grown in October. My son is in it, and he enjoys it. I mean, I've upped his days because he's really enjoying the program. A lot of parents I've talked to about the program, they can't get their kids away from it. You go to pick them up at the end of the night, it takes like 15 minutes because they don't want to leave. With the donation from Blessings, they have gotten games that are different than what you would have at home. So we have like Panic Tower, which is a really fun game the kids are really into right now, and these Keva blocks, which they have created amazing things. Long, like big towers, ramps, all kinds of things. It's really kind of a neat program, and the things we've been able to get with this donation has been really neat. Just today we've had another couple kids register for the program, so we're almost at our 20, our goal. Yeah, which is really good. And Jess and Michael have been great to work with. They've really formed a good relationship in the school with Teresa in the office, with Scott Walls with the gym equipment, with Miss Hesse in the library. Like, it's a really good community going there. It's great to kind of have that connection with the school, and just to see them interact, because I usually go once a week, twice a week sometimes for Cameron to pick him up, and just it's a good environment. It's a really good program. I'm happy to see it's doing well.
And just a continued partnership with the school board. We're back into Norwell after Thanksgiving, the first Tuesday to do basketball again with Coach Aaron. That's geared towards 10 to 14-year-olds. So, a grade, I guess that'd be like, 5 to 8 or grades 5 to 9. Again, it's a great program. It's free of charge. They've got, if you can see in the picture there, they've got a beautiful hardwood basketball court. It's great to be in the big gym. Really enjoy that. And then with our seasoned veteran coach Bill Raynard, we're going to be doing our grassroots hockey program that starts up on October 14th. So Sunday afternoons in Clifford. We've got 34 kids signed up, so he's going to have his hands full. That's a great program too. There's some kids that would not get the chance to try hockey if it wasn't for something like this. There are some other programs that run kind of like it in this area, but to be able to offer this one, and to have some of the parents from last year step up and offer to be more of a presence as coaches as well is gonna bode well. Look forward to getting up there on the 14th to just kind of process registrations and maybe throw the skates on and lend a hand for that first week. And then just touching on skating and shinny, we offer free skating and shinny 6 days a week starting after Thanksgiving, and that's thanks to all of our community sponsors. So we've got service clubs, businesses that sign on, and so you don't have to bring your wallet or get your wallet out when you show up. It's all free. It's all covered. It's all on the website. I know other places, a family of 4, you're looking at $14 to $17 just to go skating, whereas here it's nice to not have to collect. And can't say enough about our local sponsors. They're wonderful and fabulous. So it's $100 a session to sponsor. And as mentioned, we do shinny hockey and skating, and essentially we've got something to offer 6 days a week. Saturdays are fairly busy with tournaments and other user groups, but Sunday through Friday there's an opportunity to skate or play shinny. Yeah, so just to wrap up, we want to work with what went well in 2018 and make it even better for 2019 regarding online booking, registration, and invoicing. And with regard to assisting or providing programs, we're always open to suggestions. If members of the community want to see something, we certainly give it a try. And just we want to increase and improve our presence in childcare.
I just want to thank all the people that are involved in recreation facilities. Barring none, we're the best in the area. Very few could challenge us with how our facilities operate, how our programs are. You guys just do fantastic work. You have, and you recruited fantastic volunteers that augment what you do. And I certainly appreciate it on this council does, and I know our community does. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I just had a couple things about around the pool, because we heard about the pool coming in under budget a couple of different times, but no one made mention that the Harrison Kinsman did a ton of work there, and so I think it's important that we recognize that they did a lot of work there. And I was also wondering about that Swim to Survive program. Is there a cost to the students for that, or is that something we provide? How does that work?
Yeah, so through Mayor Bridge, what we do is it's the Life Saving Society that offers it. So we apply for a grant. So essentially, they'll cover up to $16 per kid. So it doesn't actually cover our cost. We contribute in kind as well. But we see the value in offering that type of program for grade 3s and 7s. So it's basically a combination of our in kind, basically donating the cost of the rental of the pool facility, and then the Life Saving grant kind of covers the staff time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Just if I might, I'd like to offer my congratulations to Al Carr and all your staff. I walk every morning, or try to walk every morning, and the increase in pride in looking after the facility is quite noticeable. I could even see in the staff that they felt more pride in working there, and just congratulations to how that facility looks and is picked up, and the staff for the good job that they've done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Gee.
Thank you. I was just curious whether we would ever consider a before school program. Now that we
Did you want to speak to that? Because it's something that we've talked about.
Just through Mayor Bridge real quick. Technically, as an authorized rec program, as the legislation currently stands or sits, we can offer after school only.
I see.
Certainly if that changed, or if we wanted to pursue becoming a licensed child care provider, we could then pursue before school care. At this point, in the eyes of the Ministry of Education, municipality, our department, we're considered an authorized rec program. And so we're only allowed to do after school programming at this point.
Okay.
Up until 6 p.m.
And
it's just a question that I was asking.
Yeah. And on that, as far as the county goes, and you didn't mention the fact that you had your county visit to get approved by the county for subsidized units, and we're hearing back from them, but it went well, I believe.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to Louisa about the before school, because we have run into this problem, Councilor Dirksen, is the fact that she maybe recommended that we look with maybe a group and do a breakfast program. So that would get you your before school program sort of through the side door. And so I mentioned to Matt, we should probably sit down with county and try to figure out how that might work. And maybe we can find a group that wants to help out with that. And that way, if you had to drop off your student at 7:30 because you had to leave to go, they could drop off for the breakfast program. So it's in the works to look at it, but we can't do the before under our program.
Right. So I'm not 100% sure at Palmerston Public, but I would expect that there is a breakfast program of some kind.
I don't think there was, because I don't think you can bring your
I know there is at Minto Clifford, but
well, I think Minto Clifford has one.
Okay.
But Palmerston, that'd be something that maybe you could get.
That might be something you partner with the school.
Yeah, because a lot of the parents that I've talked to, they might have to leave by 7:30 to go to drive to someplace.
Yeah,
and they really don't have that before school thing. If they could drop them off for a breakfast program, which would be fine. All kids should have a good breakfast.
Absolutely.
That might be something we could work on.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
we're just trying to get our feet on the ground and running, and I'm excited about what we've done so far.
It's always good to look ahead though.
So far, so good.
Question.
Yep.
Good. Have somebody move the report. Great report.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
Councilor Caldwell. Councilor Elliott. All in favor?
Lots of good news.
I'm going to turn it over to, I believe you, Councilor Church.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bridge. To ask our
All right.
In the wonderful world of water.
wastewater foreman, Mr. Mark Robertson, to come to the front, please. And we want to talk today about some of our findings.
Wonderful.
So go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Councillor Turton. I guess I'll just jump right into this.
Yep.
We got the results from the sanitary CCTV inspection work that we did in Hairston this year. Back April 10th, the council meeting, we passed the resolution below, or the motion below. This is the last recommendation from the 2007 Hairston I&I study that was put forth by BM Ross. We awarded the work to DM Robichaud and with the assistance from Triton Engineering to look at 15 kilometers of sanitary main and about just under 900 lateral services to identify I&I in the actual pipe structures, and the other one was just to look at the structural integrity of the pipes. And we have taken that information and put it in our citywide asset management program that's being uploaded currently, and it'll give us a quality-based assessment instead of just a age-based assessment, which we're working on right now. And that'll give us better life cycle costing down the road. Back to the I&I, we ended up finding about 80 sources of infiltration. 30 of those were in the main line, 50 were in the service laterals, and they had a variety of different severities, and they rated them from what they called gushers, all the way down to drippers. So
I like that.
Self-explanatory, I guess. 20 of the 80 identified locations were listed as gushers. So
wow.
Those are pretty important ones that we want to be looking at in future budgets through whether it's lining, chemical grouting, or open trench repair. And then the top two pictures, that's just basically how Robichaud did the work and what they were looking for. And then in the bottom left picture there, that's on King Street South. We're going to show a little video with that one, but that shows some pretty significant I&I there. And the one on the right, that is a service on Margaret Street. Anyways, it just shows that it's the services have as much leakage as some of the mains do.
Dirty movie.
Yep.
There. There it is. Oh, there's the video.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Is that a gusher? That's a gusher.
That's a gusher.
So that's a gusher.
That's a gusher.
Wow. Yeah. So as you can see, that leaking 24/7, 365. That's a lot of water. We have to treat at the pump at the lift stations, and then we have to treat that water at the plant as well. The other reason why I picked this video to show you guys is as the camera moves down the pipe, then we move into a much better section of pipe that's right next to it, and this is more representative of what the collection system looks like as a whole. It was mostly installed in 1962 to 72, asbestos cement pipe, and it's for the most part in pretty good shape.
Good.
Moving into the next part of the presentation, we did find 15 significant structural deficiencies, so those will also have to be addressed through future budgets.
Mark, if I can, what would have caused work on the pipe would have caused those leaks like that, those gushers?
Yeah,
because the next section there wasn't a leak in it. That's
Yeah, it could be really anything. That specific one was at a connection point. That's the piece of pipe that was connected to the manhole, so it was had work done on it, something like that, or
so that could be fixed or could be fixed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or another typical spot you'll see it is where a service has been added.
That makes
later
sense.
on, and then you cut a core into the pipe, and then
it deteriorates.
Yeah.
Where is the water coming from? Is that just groundwater, or is that rainwater, or is it running all the time, or?
So groundwater. That's groundwater.
So it's just sitting in the midst of the water, and it's just coming through into the pipes.
Yeah. Right. But we specifically did this
in the spring to try and capture as many of those as possible.
Oh, okay. All right. So it was wet.
Other questions?
Right.
That's all right, Mayor Bridge. So hearing that, I mean, we spent a lot of money in the town of Palmerston doing the same I&I study and a lot of repairs over there, which has resulted in
Tremendous.
Building lots and a lot of buildings. So the recommendation here is that the council receives the October 2nd, 2018 report from the wastewater foreman regarding results of sanitary sewer CCTV inspection in Hairston. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Dirksen. All in favor of this motion? Against? That's carried. Thank you. So the second item we want to talk about today is the DWQMS, the Minto water system sampling update, and Sir Todd Rogers, our DWQMS coordinator and lead hand. So go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to update you on a few things with our sampling. So starting in 2018, the new arsenic limit came into play. So in Clifford, we do have 2 wells with arsenic present. It's below the maximum acceptable limit, but we are at half of the limit, so that means we do extra sampling. So we've completed, it's quarterly, we have to take those samples. So we've got 3 rounds of those samples in, and you can see the range that we're looking at. Just keeping you updated, and we're going to monitor it, watch for an upward trend. If we get anywhere close to that upper limit, then we'll have to change what we're doing. Also, Health Canada is considering instituting a limit on strontium in drinking water. So they're currently just looking into this. In Ontario right now, it's not something that we test for, but in 2016, when we did the upgrade to number 2 in Hairston, we did detect strontium at that time. So it is something that in the future, if they do put in a limit and the province adopts it, that could affect us. So to be proactive, we are going to sample all our Minto wells for strontium, just see if it is present and what kind of levels we're dealing with. And then September 5th, we had weekly bacteriological samples that were collected but did not make it to the lab because of a problem with the courier. So as a result, we missed a week of sampling basically, and in our scoring this year, that's going to show up. So.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Faulkner.
Thank you, Councillor Turton. Todd, I know, I'm pretty sure you brought this to us before about the arsenic.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure I asked this question before, but my age has caused me to forget your answer. Do we know where the arsenic is coming from?
It's naturally occurring. And
just naturally occurring.
Yeah. So, and
I think there was arsenic in my water, and it's affecting my memory.
Yeah. So.
With that strontium.
And same with the strontium. It's something that's naturally occurring. Yeah.
So. Other questions?
Move it.
Yeah, well, it's just 1 second.
Oh, you have a
I'll
question?
read the recommendation.
Sorry.
The Compliance Coordinator, September 27th, 2018 report, Minto Water System Sampling Update. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Deputy Mayor Faulkner, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Todd. So what's next here? Trip, I'll pass the chair back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Turton, and I'll pass it on to Bill to give us a little.
Mayor Bridge, I won't be long. This is another request to extend the requirement for building permit on a project in the Palmerston Industrial Park. We've recommended that you do extend a couple of those dates for the building permit. We do have a site plan agreement signed for this project, and the completion date is July 2nd on that, 2020. I'm not recommending you change that completion date. So that should allow for this project to go ahead next year and be finished in time for the date committed to in the site plan agreement. So our recommendation is outlined there.
Questions?
I just wondered if he has heard anything on his licenses yet. Are we aware?
So this was the shrimp guy.
Oh, the
This is
shrimp
the
guy.
shrimp
But
guy.
the,
I'm with the arsenic with you. I'm
Shrimp could be only that big.
the cannabis guy still is not.
Yeah.
But we did send your resolution to Health Canada.
The shrimp guy's just having trouble getting his contractor organized pretty well.
I think everybody's having
Yeah,
challenges.
it's just nobody can get to anything. So hopefully he'll be ready to go in the spring. As I say, site stuff's there, everything's done.
Gotta catch up.
Okay. Somebody move that? Oh, Councilor Elliott. Person, all in favor? Okay. Next up.
Air Bridge, the roads and drainage manager and I are going to kind of tag team on these next couple of things. In the interest of time, we're not going to go through a lot of detail on them. We are at an early stage, and there's a lot of information in the plans, but they're there for you to have a look at. Just recall the process that got us where we are right now. You set $55,000 in the 2018 capital budget for exploring options regarding interring cremated remains. May 22nd, you discussed issues regarding cemetery maintenance that were raised at a council meeting that I was not at that one. June 19th, you received a draft of the cemetery master plan that we've been reviewing over the summer, and that you will propose to have a public meeting this fall. July 3rd, you awarded the design work to Hilton Landmark. They were very, very much lower bid than the others. We've had an excellent experience with that group, having met with them on 3 occasions over the summer and into September. So what we have is options for Clifford, Harrison, Palmerston cemetery designs that would allow very long-term planning. So we're not talking about even 25 years. We're talking about for the next 50 to 100 years. So this is one option that was developed for Clifford.
Yes.
What we're talking about is finishing the land around the chapel building in Clifford with hard surface, and then a number of different features that could be done in different ways. The town may choose in the future to build one section of the of a niche or a feature, or you might have, in the case of Clifford, you had a fairly substantial donation for a columbarium. So what the landscape architect has done is laid out ways that all could be situated on the property and how you might finish the lands around it to give a whole range of options. So in each case, what you have is one option and then a preferred option. The preferred option just came from discussion between Mike, myself, and the design architect. So what we'd like to do is take that preferred option to the public for review by them. I don't want to say that it's entirely the case, but the preferred option, frankly, was the less expensive option in most cases, in all cases. So I think what we try to do is be as practical as we can, but we are, of course, looking long term here, very long term. Things could happen next year, but they would be phased in, and it would be up to council of the day to phase those in over time. So in Harrison, there's a design that came forward with a retention pond with you can see a meandering feature around it. Would be quite attractive, and then again improvements around the chapel building in Harrison and relocated parking. So you can see what some of those features would look like there. The interesting thing that came through for both Clifford and Harrison was using the walls of the chapel buildings to have niches, and I think that's excellent because we know that our buildings aren't overly well used, but they are actually maintained in a reasonable fashion structurally. So I think this could help with the maintenance of them, and over time the cemetery master plan talks about finding interesting uses for the insides of the building too, besides storage. So the preferred option that doesn't have the pond feature, which is a fairly expensive, it does have a scatter garden, so that little loop that's shown there with the circle would be a meandering path with a scatter garden and a place where remains can be scattered and plaques are placed in recognition. And then in Palmerston, we have a little different situation. We had one leg of the cemetery which had kind of been set aside informally and not used at all. The one design that came forward was kind of a symmetrical X shape, so you can see the chapel on the one side, kind of a an X shape leading to a central gazebo feature. The preferred option is a little less symmetrical. It still has an interesting center feature to it. And one interesting thing I think we wanted to point out to council here was, and I didn't know this, and I guess I should have after almost 8 years here, there are a series of older stones set aside kind of beside the chapel area. And this would allow for that to be recognized and organized and perhaps developed as a heritage feature. So that's kind of to the south of the chapel building, you can see there. So just in terms of a summary, we are looking at if the town went to build them next year, it'd be $2 million. Well, obviously we're not going to do that. We can't afford that. But you could build one or two if you had a donation or something like that over time. But remember, these things last 50 to 100 years minimum or more. So you're looking at over 6,000 interments in all these features. So just to give you an idea, you may recall from the master plan, we're expecting to go from 60 to 100 interments a year in time. So we have some 3,000 plus spaces in traditional burial, and with this kind of plan, you're looking at 10,000 spots. So I think what you're doing is sort of planning well ahead into the future for options for many, many councils yet to come. What we'd like to do is have a full day of open houses on each facility. So, for example, you'd have one meeting from 10 a.m. to noon, a second meeting from 1 to 3, and a third meeting, say, from 3:30 to 5:30. One for Palmerston, one for Clifford, one for Harrison. And you would invite people from the community to come and look at the drawings, talk to the experts about them, get some ideas, and provide some feedback to you. So I think what would happen is this would all come back to the next council for a budget arrangement. If you're generally okay with what you've seen, we're at least on the right track, and you like the way we've set up the public meetings, then we would be circulating these plans to the funeral home operators and to the master plan to the funeral home operators with this incorporated. So again, I don't want it out there that we're going to run and spend, or recommending we spend $2 million on options like this, but see it as more of a long-term plan. We did get one donation years ago in Clifford, so now if we got a similar donation and we wanted to go ahead with something, we have some sort of plan to work toward to place it. So our recommendation is that you receive this report and that you allow us to proceed to the public comment as outlined in the report. Did I miss anything, Mike?
No, the only thing I was going to mention was in all three of the designs that are presented there, they all have in-ground cremated remain areas, just like the cremation gardens that's currently in Harrison. So those could be implemented very inexpensively, and at least to give some people some other options right off the bat. We just got to make sure that these areas that would go into service would not impact the future installation of another feature in the cemetery.
I'm just curious. Is there an actual document with this, or are these pictures? Like, is this the report that they sent us, or the?
If I may, through you, Mayor Bridge, there is a report that comes with this. So we're heading to the public meeting stage. So what we thought was, in speaking to the consultant, would be that we would present these options so that you see what's been happening for the last summer. Some of you, particularly the deputy mayor, were very interested in this all along, and we wanted to show him where we were on this, but that the whole document would come back to you for approval in 2020. There's been some consultation on it. So he's looked at phasing, how you might phase it. He's gone into detailed costing and how you might phase the costs over time. He's also looked at financing it, how we could finance it as a community. So that'll all come back in a document. So, but we wanted to show you the drawings just so you get a sense of what's been going on over the summer.
So can we have the document? Is it electronic? Can we?
Well, I think what I would like to do is provide it after, when it's complete, it's in little sections. So we have 5 or 6 spreadsheets, and we have another document on financing. So it's
No set report yet. Is that what you think? Like a form report?
Yeah, like I was looking for the whole thing.
Yeah, so you're not going to get the whole thing now because we have to go to the public and get feedback. That's why.
Okay, and is there any requirement like to purchase from these people or anything like that? They were only for this
The landscape architect.
Yes. Okay. All right. I was pretty sure of that, but I wanted to check.
I've lost my picture here. Just a second. In the columbariums or in the one garden, it has a description of a 2 niche columbarium. Is there an opportunity for more of those? Because we talked to the one vendor down at AMO, and you've been in contact with them, and they were a really nice option. And I know funding is an issue, but I'm wondering with families, if you were looking at purchasing a 6 or an 8, whether we could help offset some of the costs for the community by having them for sale to the public to use, and you would sort of build that into part of the, and I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head, but they were a really nice option for families. You could put 2, 4, 6. I just didn't see that there were a lot of spaces for them in the design, but has that been encompassed or talked about?
Well, I think that's the kind of thing we're trying to get from the public is that, well, yeah, we'd like to see more niche columbariums. The landscape architect will give a much more comprehensive presentation than I am because he's a professional in that area. So that's kind of why it's in the. But we did want to bring it back so you could see it in its work. And if yeah, I mean, I'd encourage you to go to the public meetings when they're open. So I wanted to also make sure that you were okay with doing it in one day. The consultant said it's more affordable for us that way, and in fact, that was a lower price option. So
I think they're not great.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I really like the idea of getting the whole town involved, the funeral directors and people, and having meetings, and because this is pretty important to a lot of people. The cemeteries in all 3 of our centers are beautiful, and this is just going to add to them. So I like the concept, and I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Second by Walker. All in favor? It's just the start of a process. I'll turn this back over to you, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Bridge. We've got Mr. Mike McIsaac here this evening, and we're going to talk about sidewalks. So, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So earlier this year, the province approved the minimum maintenance standards, or the new minimum maintenance standards for sidewalks. And some of the highlights are, after an accumulation of 8 centimeters of snow or ice formation, the municipality has 48 hours from the completion of an event to provide a minimum width of 1 meter walking surface, if applicable. Patrols required on representative sidewalks. Currently, what we do with representative sidewalks when we're patrolling is the downtown cores kind of give us an overview of what all the sidewalks are like. And then obstructions or features not installed by the town, which present a possible safety hazard to pedestrians found within 45 centimeters of either side of the sidewalk, must be removed within 28 days. And all sidewalks must be inspected once every calendar year within 16 months. So the second slide, that's the council direction previously brought forward. And then the next slide there. Currently, approximately 65% of the sidewalks in place are not up to the current standard. For example, this year, the town was able to complete roughly 1 kilometer of sidewalks using up the capital and operational budgets, as well as almost 500 meters of asphalt, of an asphalt walking surface. and 1.2 kilometers of sidewalks on the connecting link up there in Clifford. Under the current policy, current operational staff responds to the representative routes in all 3 communities within 12 hours of a winter event. Not all sidewalks are currently maintained during winter operations, and moving forward, a plan needs to be shown that the town is moving forward to meet these expectations in the upcoming years. This figure just shows the county accessibility standard, and then we got some pictures coming up in the next slide. The top picture is definitely a sidewalk that does not comply, and then the bottom picture doesn't comply. The one on the top left there, there's not too many of these sidewalks out in the community, but they are off in some of the older parts. Low traffic areas that they haven't been maintained over the years, lack of use kind of thing. The one on the bottom, unfortunately, it was a newer installation, roughly about 10 years ago, but it's undersized. And then the new standard on the right. Trails are an important part of active transportation, basically during all seasons. I guess as we move forward, I don't know if there's any more opportunity to implement more trails in the community, but it's definitely something that can be looked at. Proposed the policy, the highlights for the proposed policy, which is attached, is moving to all 1.5 meter wet sidewalks, arterial roads and sidewalks both sides. For an example, Laura Street in Harrison, Clifford, Main Street, Toronto Street. Toronto Street in Palmerston currently only has the one sidewalk. It could be a possibility to increase it as it gets developed in Palmerston on the east side of town there. Local roads and sidewalks if needed. Churches, local convenience. Some of the other proposed policy additions are in there. Right now, currently there is approximately 43 kilometers of sidewalk in the communities. With the policy, what's shown in the maps, we would be reducing it down to approximately 33 kilometers of sidewalk. But what the 10 kilometers that aren't necessarily replaced are in areas where there's 2 sidewalks on all 4 legs of an intersection in an older part of town, very low volume areas. And this way we're able to concentrate our funds in order to bring higher used areas back up to standard in a more timely fashion. We will continue to exceed the minimum maintenance standards in those the representative current routes. The way that nobody's going to see a slip in any of the current procedures out there, and we will try to enhance that moving forward as time and accommodations allow us to. This is an example of kind of the finished product of the sidewalk routes and the locations that would be put in place in Clifford. Harrison and Palmerston both have attached maps in the policy similar to this as well. So with the implementation moving forward, the developer developer contributions and additions to the system will help. An increase to the capital budget over the next 10 years. Operational budget of $120,000 combined for the winter and summer maintenance. The figures may be adjusted annual by councils depending on the priorities moving forward, and the policy being reviewed annually at budget and new term of council.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Faulkner.
Through you, Councillor Turton. Section 16.2.1. I don't know what page. It's right at the start, fairly right at the
I
start.
saw it right at the front there.
Oh, you're talking about the presentation.
Yeah, the presentation.
No, cannot.
It says encroachment, obstructions, or features not installed by the town that constitute a significant hazard to pedestrians. I sure hope there's a provision that you can ask them to remove it immediately and not wait 28 days.
That's correct. Like it would be a matter of getting it to a safe situation.
Yeah.
And then they have.
Yeah. Is there a provision in that bylaw or the policy to do that?
I believe so.
Yeah, basically you have to have it out within 28 days.
Yeah, but sometimes
Can't be any
28
later
days
than-
is not
Could be
acceptable.
28 minutes if it's that
28
hazardous.
minutes. Yeah.
It's not hazardous.
That would be the part that concerns me, is that we don't have the power to make that happen now.
Mr. Chair, this is a minimum maintenance standard, so we generally exceed the standard. But so from a liability perspective, if it goes beyond 28 days, you're definitely in a problem. But if it's an immediate unsafe condition, then Public Works people will identify it, block it off, and then we have to schedule the work to repair it within 28 days. Yeah. I think it's we exceed the standards.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying, CO White. I'm just saying if somebody else put something there, that's what I'm talking about.
Somebody else or an individual put something there.
Making them, if I may, through you, making someone remove something that's there can take a lot longer than that. I think usually what we're doing is doing it ourselves.
Okay.
And then we may charge them the cost of that, but
that's good.
Yeah, and to go along with that, a lot of times it has to do with utility infrastructure. So it could be a broken valve box or a Whiteman cover that's not on their vault in the ground. A lot of these things are fairly minor and can be addressed fairly quickly. But there is also some more severe situations out there as well.
But if you're in a situation where you had a safety issue, you try to make sure it was safe at least.
Yeah.
Then it might take longer to get
Yes.
it down.
Yes, that's correct.
Maybe stop people from walking by there with a tree branch.
Yeah.
A widow or whatever we call them.
Yeah. Exactly.
For the makers.
So, Mike, on the accessibility standard there, the one that does not comply, that's less than 10 years old.
Yeah.
We really do nothing unless it becomes unsafe.
Well, yeah, like we've been repairing the higher priority locations over the years. So that one that's undersized in the back corner of a community, in the policy there it's the suggestion to actually have it removed and just put back in the grass. If it's a low volume area, and then we eliminate that hazard and then put the funds towards
priority areas.
Exactly. Yes.
Other questions, Deputy Mayor or?
Thanks.
There you go.
I can't remember what I was saying. Okay, so did you say? Stop. Did you say the 1.2 meters sidewalk, which looks like it's in great shape, but doesn't meet standard anymore? Like, would you take out perfectly good cement?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
No,
good.
not unless we were, if there was 100 meters there and everything all the way around was getting completed.
Yes.
At the
Okay.
same
That makes
time.
perfect sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Other
I
questions?
misunderstood that. I'm sorry.
So I think we're just making a motion. Thank you. Bridge, all in favor of accepting this presentation?
First, second, and third, or what?
You got it covered.
Well covered.
Harry, we'll pass the chair back to you.
Okay, I'll pass it over to Councillor Caldwell for the.
And the Finance Committee has 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first one is a change in the tax sale process. And I'll turn it over to Treasurer Duff to explain.
All right.
Exciting stuff.
Well, thanks, Chair So we're finally getting to finance. So this is something that probably you've been aware of. It actually came out last year. Probably was talked about a bit at AMO, but as one of the many bills that kind of came down in a flurry last year to amend the Municipal Act, included in that is some changes to the tax sale process. And report, we kind of highlight three main things. So in the past, you had to wait 3 years before you could actually do anything, and I know that's often been a bit of frustration for us. It's now optional to go to 2 years, and it's up to us if we want to do that. The other thing is sometimes the taxpayer would be in the process and they would request an extension, and I do recall coming once to council since I've been here, and that required a bylaw. Now it doesn't require a bylaw. It's just kind of a negotiation between myself and the taxpayer. And also, say we had $20,000 in tax arrears and the property sold for $100,000. In the past, the municipality could apply for the excess, like leave it there for a year. Now there's no option. So actually, the province gets the excess now. So. Anyway,
Gee.
They need it.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that one came from.
That's a surprise.
So, yeah. So there's no option to do anything there. So anyway, we've talked about it internally and probably talked with a few years, and we would like to transition to the 2 years, because if you recall, the 3 years basically means 4. Because the 3 years are up, we start sending the notices, and you have a year to pay it off in full. This would make it 2 years. We send the notices in a year. So it's really 3. The mayor has said many times, your first loss is your best loss. And to the taxpayer, like unfortunately, it's often an awkward situation. It can be a family breakup, or it could be an illness or something. And we're probably not doing them any favors by allowing them to dig them in a deeper hole. So basically what happens, like we do very, very few tax sales. So what normally happens long before it hits here, we have a refinancing, we have a sale or whatever. The other thing about holding off long is there's a greater chance that the amount of taxes outstanding will exceed the value of the property. Not as much a concern with an active building or that, but if you've got a vacant lot or a derelict property, and again, that has happened to us, and the value just doesn't exceed it. And the few tax sales we have had, some we've ended up with the property because it's not a buildable lot. But on the whole, especially ones in Palmerston, they've worked out really well. And hopefully we'll, not only get our tax money, but also have a decent property if you get a better owner. So anyway, that's what we're thinking of doing, is doing like 2019 as a transition period and have it in place for January 2020.
Are there any questions or comments? No? Then the recommendation is the council receives the tax collector and treasurer's report dated September 26, 2018, and endorses this improved cash management policy change. Have someone make that motion. Councillor Anderson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Faulkner. All in favor?
Schwarzenheimer.
My goodness,
And the motion is passed. And the
You've
second
really
item
got
in
into that,
the
Ashley.
agenda is a very timely one with all the hackings we've had both in our business world and in the municipal world. And I would ask the treasurer to talk about cybersecurity.
Sure. Yes, very timely indeed, I'm afraid. It's out there on the weekend. Facebook got hacked, one of the biggest organizations in the world.
Amazon.
Amazon, everyone, the Pentagon, AT&T, everyone. And unfortunately, it's rippling down to small and medium-sized businesses, and that's basically what we are. And they're getting more sophisticated all the time. The ones that are grabbing the headlines are these ransomware attacks, where basically you get a message that your data has been encrypted, and if you want it released, there's a special code, and you give us so much in Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency, and they'll release it. There's also such things as, transferring funds. Like staff here, I know within the last month or so, has gotten many, these stupid ones that look a little bit off. Like, can you make up a check? Can you transfer funds and that too? And often they're starting to use actual email addresses and that too. So it's beyond your antivirus. It's beyond your backup. Our insurance broker and our, JLT and that have approached us with some options for some insurance coverage for that. And I just had a call last week with insurance broker, insurance agent, and also someone from the cybersecurity branch of JLT from Calgary. And we kind of discussed the various things that are happening, and it's not just backups. Sometimes they'll hack your backup too, and they'll seize that. And fortunately, Ken Frey of Freycom was in the office at the time, and we went through a lot of the technical things. So we are actually backing up hourly internally, and we back up to an offsite cloud device once a day. So we're doing that. We've got firewalls, and we've got that. But still, if Facebook can't prevent it, we can't either. So we have an option to purchase some insurance that would cover a lot of our direct and indirect costs. So it may cover the actual payment. The big cost for us likely would be hiring an IT firm to restore the data if it was lost. So if it was something that was beyond our local provider, we'd have to go with someone else. We could have staff time, fraud, cybercrime, and cybercrime is basically one of these illegal transfers of funds, whether it's somebody that we did or, we just heard about online booking. It's working really well, but say something went wrong on that one. So it would cover us for those things. It's not a silver bullet, and it's not going to say, well, we've done this and we're great, but I think it's one mitigation step we could use. We can get more detailed quotes, but they provided us with two quotes. One, basically 5 million coverage or 2 million coverage, and the difference in the premium is about $6,000 for that. So one's like a little over 10,000, and one is 4,000. So I guess I've come to you. Do you think this is a good idea? And if so, would you like to purchase it, and at what level? But can you answer any questions? Or
I have a question.
Sure.
In respect to the cyber crime, we all are aware that the cyber crime is happening every day and almost every minute.
Mm-hmm.
How's the insurance company work? Do they pay the ransom? Because you can't trace these guys. You can't trace them.
Yeah, it's funny. I got something today from the OPP, and they're saying, don't pay the ransom. Kind of like a kidnapping.
Absolutely.
But say between staff and council, we decided, well, we can't get out of it, and we're going to be out of business for 2 months, and we pay the ransom. So the policy would be like Minto would pay the whatever criminal organization, and we'd be reimbursed by the insurance company if that happened.
So what's the $2 million cover then?
$2 million is more
the amount it would take a company to restore the data.
Yeah,
how can you if they've got it?
Well,
encrypted?
Once you've got that, maybe they've done something. Maybe we've got to rebuild. This was not a hack, but Dave Turton may remember when we took over water and sewer billing from Westerio. We did not have a customer base. We had to, like myself and our staff, had to recreate a list of customers and all that, which was very time consuming, and that was in 2003 or 4. So can you imagine even doing that? Say we lost all our contacts or something, like our banking information. What if we had to change all our credit cards and our account numbers? We've got all these people on pre-authorized. It's that kind of crime, or somehow if.
So that's what the insurance company would cover.
Yeah, those kind of things. Yeah, time and material. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's been explained very well, but the premium would also cover payout if we chose to make
Yes.
a payout,
Right.
less our deductibles.
Right.
If I would suggest you go with the 2 million coverage, just because I must admit I didn't make detailed calls on the two municipalities our size, but my understanding is their expenses ended up being less than 2 million for sure. So I feel like 2 million would be a good place to start, and the $4,000 premium is reasonable to help people sleep at night.
Yeah.
And it may
I agree.
it'll cover a lot.
Yeah.
Who knows with this world what it might not cover someday, but I think it would be right to do at least that amount, and that would be where I would suggest you take it.
Yes, Councillor.
Couple of things. How much do they usually ask when you ask for ransom?
Well, I guess there isn't enough track record to say that, but as the CEO said, it has been considerably less than that. It's been, I know, for the small businesses and that, I think in the neighborhood of 1 to 200,000, sometimes less. Sometimes for individuals, it's like $1,000 or something. So I agree. I think 2 million is a lot. It covers that too. The other thing is there's going to be a lot of educational material out there. And I highly recommend that we, staff and council, take advantage of that. Like some may have a little cost, so I think a lot of it's free too, whether it's a webinar or hopefully maybe just a risk management and maybe partner Minto and, surrounding municipal clients and that too. Because a lot of that, well, one of the reports, 61% human error. It's something that, I shouldn't have clicked that link, and maybe you can educate yourself to just be a little more vigilant and alert.
The second question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had two.
Yeah.
Second question is, are we obligated to deal with our insurance company, or can we go out and quote for something like this?
We could go anywhere. Actually, so our insurance company, like our rep is Smiley Insurance and then JLT, but they have an underwriter. So this underwriter is called CFC, and they're a large provider. They're kind of like Lloyd's of London is for property casualty. These people kind of specialize in this too. And it again, I'm no expert, but it looked like a pretty reasonable policy. Again, if anyone wants to see, I just didn't include it, but
so we
there's
could
a policy.
we could go to another insurance company and ask for a quote.
You could,
and if we decided it was the same quality, we could do that. So that we're not.
Yeah.
We've only investigated one quote, correct?
Yeah, we've only investigated the one provider.
Should we, or do we got to act on this right away? Do you think?
I think it's important maybe to act fairly soon on this kind of thing.
Right, but Board had mentioned too, there's virtually very few carriers. We could go to another broker and maybe they'll be a little different, but the carrier itself has a price for that type of insurance. And very limited.
So each company would go to that carrier kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
I would envision this getting wrapped into our annual renewal. Because unfortunately, I think this is going to be a fact of life. The way we have boiler insurance or vehicle insurance, it's going to be, what's your cyber insurance? Who knows? This could become part of your homeowner's policy.
Thank you.
CEO White, did you have a comment?
I was just going to make that comment, if I may, that we would likely wrap this in with your general coverage, and I think that's due for
March 1st.
In March, and then maybe due to go out for proposal again in 2019, 2020, if that's council's wish. You could get bids then.
And just on the point of lack of people out there providing it, I know with the SWIFT program, they were quite concerned about this came up as a risk that we would have because of building the structure. And there was a terrible time trying to find, the risk was identified, but trying to find the actual insurance coverage. So I think that for now, we should probably just go ahead with what we've got. And then I think the next council probably will be time for them to go out and do an insurance quote anyways, and this be part of it. But a lot of people are just getting into this now because, so we're going to see a lot of different, there's very little limited brokerage people that are out there, the providers
Exactly,
for sure.
yeah. Municipal is tough in itself, and
Yeah.
this is.
And we could only
tougher.
find one, so we didn't go for quotes because there was only one that would offer it. So we just took it.
I mean, I just asked Treasury Jeff. One of the things that Facebook and a lot of these others have been nailed on is the fact that they have the banking information for several different people. Yeah. You like if our taxpayers private information.
Yes.
Would our insurance cover
Yes,
us for
and-
anything if they got?
Yeah, that is one of them because
Okay.
we have
That's
a
huge.
lot and we
That is
have
huge.
an increasing amount all the time because we're saying please
We're
pay
really liable.
electronically.
Mhm.
Many of our recreation programs and that our after school program, our bank is encouraging electronic payment. They don't want to see checks and that. So yes, we're going to be the trustee and even
And that
more
would all be
personal.
covered in this insurance
Yes.
policy. Councillor Turton, understand this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Colwell. I'm wondering, Treasurer Gord, how many opportunities, for example, when we have somebody getting online, going on to our arenas, and they're going online, they're pretty well in our system.
Yeah.
Is that how they're getting in, or how many other opportunities do they
Yeah,
have?
and all they're doing is looking up then. Say they're going to pay. So we brought in this thing maybe about 2 years ago. So Keystone, who's our provider, got bought out by USTI. And then there's been a few other things. I think if you saw it's now Central Square. But that company, it's somewhat like PayPal. So they're handling the financial part of that, and that's not really in our system.
Gotcha.
And they're taking the risk of that and guaranteeing
So-
the transaction. And
So
credit.
is there others within the town of Minto? For example, the chlorine company checking our inventory. That's just an example.
Yeah, you could have more. And what are we into? The Internet of Things, right? We're just barely scratched the surface on that. So yeah, they're all risks. They're things that we can depend upon. You know, we're trying to use reputable brokers. Ken Frey is very up on this kind of thing, and it's been a concern. Is it going to be foolproof? No. This is one mitigation strategy.
So can we get a 6-month term for $2,000 here? Because of
I can look into that if you'd rather that it coincided with that one. Again, I've been talking for a little bit, so they're kind of holding us coverage, deciding on what we want to do.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Play around.
yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I'll make the motion.
Just have one more.
You got it.
Councillor Anderson?
So these people send you a message saying we've encrypted all your data, your computers don't work. We're going to send them money to some unknown, obscure, unreachable, undetectable bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to count on them then reestablishing our information uncorrupted, trustable,
Right.
and still private.
Exactly.
Which is why the OPP is saying don't pay it.
Right.
But,
Why would we pay it?
But we know other municipalities or organizations have gone through that process and thought, what the problem is, we have no data. We can't do anything.
But how reliable was their data when they got it back?
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I just
Yeah.
go, these are crooks.
Well, I know.
Yeah, I know.
But in the past, I just know from hearing it that it has come back intact. That's not saying it would continue that way with other companies.
Like I just think if they start getting ransom from this, that you can just see this business growing and by
It is.
leaps and bounds.
It is.
It is.
Yeah. If this ever happened, I'd be in contact with you for sure.
Yeah, part of the cost of responding is consultants and people who are way above our qualifications to
For sure.
respond to
I'm
them
no
and make sure you get what you
cyber crook.
and respond in the right way. So at least now we would have the insurer working with us too.
Yeah,
So
that makes
I'm not
sense.
running out and hiring a consultant
Right.
on Sunday afternoon to get in here and try and help us work through this. We need the insurance. So
Yeah, and that's why there's two policies. There's a crime, and they call this a cyber incident. There is no deductible. There isn't a 10,000 because just as the COA said, they don't want you dickering around. They want you on it now. You know, wherever it happens.
Oh, call the question.
Recommendation is the council receives the report dated September 25th, 2018 from the treasurer, deputy CAO, and provide direction to staff as to which, if any, additional insurance policy should be purchased. And Councillor Turton, would you like to make a recommendation on which?
I would like to board to be our negotiator, and let's do 6 months until our policy runs out, until we establish whether we're going out for tender.
And you have a seconder for that? Councillor Elliott? Is there any comments? I would like to make one. What if that is not a possibility?
Yeah.
And you are committed to a one-year policy?
It'd be up to that, up to $2,004,000.
$4,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
up to
But
X.
if
That's
he
preference
was not
based.
allowed to do it just until our policy renews.
But that would cover
So you're saying up to 6 months or if possible.
If possible.
Yeah.
So do you have that, Emily?
Yeah, so you're looking for a coverage like up to 2,000 for 6 months or 12 months at 4,000 for 6 months.
Is the 6 months are
What if it's 2,100?
Well,
It gets complicated.
That's the thing, yeah.
if I may, what the recommendation is up to $2 million coverage for 4,000 or less to correspond with our policy expert.
Correct. That's
If possible.
I'll second that then.
Deputy Mayor Faulkner seconds that. All in favor? Motion is passed. And the final item on the treasurer's agenda is the approval of accounts.
How come there's so little?
I'm
Small one
happy
is
about this. This is like the total of one invoice in the past. Anyway, so thankfully we don't have any progress payments or anything like that on this one. I'm sure this won't last, but anyway. So we have a flow test for our fire department from AJ Stone for $16,000. Some netting around the rinks for $7,600. Slide in a playground for $8,800, and some wastewater equipment, Spector, spelled SPECTOR, of $5,000, and not too much else. It's beyond routine for this time.
Are there any questions or comments? Recommendation is the council receives the treasurer's report dated September 28, 2018 regarding approval of accounts and approves the town of Minto accounts by department for August-September 2018. Someone move that, please. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Mayor Bridge. All in favor? Motion is passed, and I turn the chair back to Mayor Bridge.
Thank you. And we, yes.
It's a point of order, but I'm wondering if we should have Councillor Turton withdraw his motion. So it was on the minutes. The first motion.
Do you want just?
I second it.
Oh, did you? Oh.
First motion.
Okay. Do you want a friendly amendment?
Oh, we're back to the cyber insurance.
Yeah, I think we had a motion on the floor and we didn't deal with it.
Okay, can we ask Annalene to read the current motion, and then Councillor Turton would rescind his original and
Or ask for a friendly amendment? That not work?
yes, that is, as long as it's not included. We put a motion on the floor and it should either be rescinded or dealt with. Because I second the motion.
Defeat the motion.
Easily defeated.
okay, so we'll vote on the first motion, and the motion is defeated. And now, could you read the second motion, please?
Should actually.
Okay, may I ask for a vote on the first motion?
For or
First
against?
motion.
For or against?
For. Okay, and the motion is defeated. Against? Okay, thank you. The motion is defeated. And now, would you please read the second motion, Emily?
That the council received a report dated September 25th, 2018 from the treasurer, deputy CAO, and directs staff to purchase an additional insurance policy up to $2 million for claim coverage at a cost of $4,000 or less.
I think that was to correspond with our
To correspond, yes, sorry.
To correspond with our
renewal.
renewal, if possible.
Yeah.
So that was already carried over.
No, that is
Yeah.
not been.
Yes,
Yeah, you
that
did.
was carried.
That was carried? All right, thank you.
Yep. All right. Other business is closed. Who did I have? You're declining now? Okay, I got myself, and I've just got, anybody else? Oh, just a couple of items. Tonight, there's going to be a tree and the opening of the new sign, dedication of the new sign in Palmerston, the electronic sign. And that's going to be held, and we're going to have at the sign in front of the 81, the old train. And also we're going to unveil this historic Royal Oaks. If you remember, we planted the tree, I think we planted that tree.
On top of the hill?
Yeah, we planted it in the summer sometime.
Yeah.
We didn't have the plaque. So this is the historic Royal Oaks plaque.
Actually, if I could, this is another tree.
Oh, this is another one.
It's in front of the building just over.
Okay, so this is the second tree. Okay, I was at one of these, and that's why I thought it was the same. So it's basically an acorn from. This acorn came from the Windsor Castle, and was brought over from after the war, I believe, and they planted a tree in Toronto, and now they use these acorns to do these historic.
Well, there's something about it. It's a full-grown tree.
Yeah.
That was brought over from England. Bob Emerson's got the background.
Yeah, so we're going to dedicate that tonight, and we also have we're going to an award ceremony, which I think is amazing, and it's for the ACO Heritage Awards, and Bob McEachran and Bob Lacombe were given this letter. It's the Architectural Conservatory of Ontario, and we were awarded, nominated for the award. It's 12 years they've been doing these awards, and it's for our sharing of these wonderful heritage assets in Palmerston. So it's for the park and the museum. And then we go down next week, and I think we have a chance of winning this. And we're up against all these Toronto people and everything. So it's really kind of neat. And there's going to be a delegation going down to the awards ceremony. So those are the things, and with the dedication of the sign tonight. So if you make it over, fine. If not, we'll be there. I don't know how bad it looks like out there, whether it's raining or. And I had one little item. Belinda mentioned it, and I just want to give you a couple of little facts. So, and Jean, you're on this committee, the cultural days, and I know unfortunately Jean's event got canceled because of weather, because she was doing stargazing. But we did 277 people came out to this, and Mary Lou, you're even on this as well. We had the farmers market. We had over 100 people come to the farmers market on a Saturday, and we haven't had and they loved it, and they want to do it again next year. I was there, so they had a lot of good stuff still there. Some of the other highlights were, again, the libraries did an excellent job on doing things on the Friday. It was a PD day, so they did a lot of things, and I give Warren County a lot of credit for that. The live radio play at the Harrison Town Hall Theater did 50. That's amazing. I think that's really good. And those are some of the highlights, and I think it was just great, and it's great for all the volunteers and people who got involved in 277. That's a lot of people wandering around for Heritage Days. Right, Gordon?
Yeah, one sunny day out of two.
Yeah, we didn't have really good weather. No. I was at the Jasper Run, by the way, and I'll just give you a heads up there. They had 300 participants out and made over $51,000. And to see a sea of orange going out for the walk was pretty impressive.
Quite amazing.
And yeah, the community really got together, and the great news there is Isaac, who is the first young man he's heading to Italy, and they think they found a cure, and he's going in November. He's had to have 6 months staying away from everything because his immune system has to come down to nothing, and they're taking him to Italy, and hopefully in 3 months he'll be cured.
Wow!
And so that's just amazing. It's a very rare disease. And Jasper will be hopefully the next one that we'll have an opportunity to.
Oh, that's great.
So really kind of neat. Anyways, that's it. We're moving on. What do you got, Bill? That's it. Yep. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Deputy Mayor Faulkner. The Committee of the Whole convenes into regular council meeting. All in favor?
59.
Moved by Councillor Durston, second by Councillor Caldwell. The Council of the Town of Minto ratifies motion made in the Committee of the Whole. All in favor? Moved by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, second by Councillor Anderson. The bylaw number 2018-80 to confirm actions of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Minto respecting meeting held October 2nd, 2018 be introduced, read first, second, and third time and passed by the Council, seal and seal of the Corporation. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Turton. The Council of the Town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the Mayor. All in favor? Thank you for a good meeting.